Let's get peppy. Welcome to PEP 224. That's PEP or Planet Extra podcast. I am Chaz the Chidello, a host of Planet America on ABC Australia, and this is an official podcast of the ABC. So say hi to the Ombudsman for me. On PEP, we cover all the stuff that's too nerdy for TV. If you're listening, you can find us on YouTube at the PEP with Chaz and Dr. Dave channel. And you can also see highlights on the PEP Clips YouTube channel. And we're on Facebook at the Chaz from Planet America channel. You also find timestamps and show notes in our blurbs. And if you leave a comment under our current episode video, we're likely to see it. You can also tweet us or blue skies at PEPCHASDRDAVE. That's at PepChaz Dr. Dave. If you want to chat to some fellow peppers, you can join our Discord server. It's on the screen now or in the blurb of the podcast. But if you want to contact me or Lockie the Lackey privately, why not email us? The address is producer@pepthepodcast.com. That address again is producer@pepthepodcast.com. And do not forget to subscribe for all that peppy goodness. It all helps. And we're recording this at 2:04 p.m. on Thursday. I'm only about 10 hours behind my reading. Astonishing. That's also 12:05 a.m. New York time on Thursday and 9:05 p.m. LA time, in case you're wondering. We're going to have about 10 time calls in a couple of months. And joining me, let's turn to the man who'll never raise the stakes on inconsequential views. It's Dr. Pepper himself, Dr. David Smith.
Hi, everyone. I am Dr. David Smith. I'm an associate professor at the US Studies Centre at the University of Sydney, but I do not speak for either of those institutions. I also don't speak for the ABC. And if I do happen to mention the name of some commercial product, it is not an endorsement. I will try not to. I will not, for example, mention the name of the delightful British sweeties that somebody just gave me. But yes, no ads on PEP. This is not the Gruen transfer or Funky Squad.
I'll be eating these delicious British sweeties in a second. Dave, while I eat a delicious British sweetie, why don't you tell us what you're grateful for?
I am grateful for the England-India test series that was just played. It was a compelling series, extraordinarily close. And I'm especially grateful for the fact that there have been quite a few of these over the last 5 years. I really feel we're getting a higher than normal number of exciting test series. Now, not all of them are, like the Australia-West Indies series that was just played was
not so much
unspeakably grim. But this England-India series, the last two Australia-India series, they had a lot of heroic individual performances against the odds. They had a lot of drama. They had a lot of hurt feelings.
The Last Ashes was great as well.
It was. And you've also got the endless comedy of England's moral victories. This is just the joke that never gets old. I am very grateful for that.
That's fair enough. I'll tell you what I'm grateful for. I'm grateful for something called Popular.Info.
Okay.
That is a Substack run by Judd Legum. So Judd Legum. So it's
isn't he some early blog pioneer?
Yeah, he used to be the editor of Think Progress as well. Now, most of the time when I recommend blogs or Substacks, they're usually either on the centre-right or kind of centrist. This one is not. It is unabashedly left-wing.
Okay.
But it's really solid independent journalism. Like it's rare that you find an independent journalist Substack that will almost exclusively traffic in stories that you haven't heard of anywhere else. Like it's original reporting.
Okay.
And I'll give you an example. It's free as well, by the way, although you can subscribe if you're not cheap, like I am. I'll give you an example of one of the stories this week, which I saw nowhere else except for on Popular.Info, and I thought, this is a good story. So I'll put in the homework. You can read it for yourself. Basically, there was a Biden rule cracking down on skin substitute products a few years back.
Okay.
I don't know much about skin substitute products, I must admit. They basically were a tiny business back in 2014. They grew to be worth $256 million of Medicare spending in 2019.
Right.
To more than $10 billion of Medicare spending in 2024. At this point in time, Medicare now spends more on skin substitutes than ambulance rides, anesthesia, or CT scans.
Hang on, is this if you need a skin graft and there isn't suitable skin available?
I guess so.
Okay.
I don't know the details. I don't know the details of what skin substitutes.
I mean, it sounds like something important.
Oh, yeah. It's definitely
why
something
has
useful.
there been such a huge increase in this industry?
I guess it's relatively new, and so as it's taking hold, it's growing.
Yep, okay.
Rapidly.
Right.
Anyway, I'm not saying that there's anything wrong with skin substitute products, but there are. But like many of these kinds of products, especially in the healthcare industry,
Yes.
there are decent ones and not so decent
Right.
ones. There are people taking opportunities for graft.
Yes.
Right?
By the way, if you're a pepper with actual knowledge of this and we are just talking absolute crap because we don't know what we're talking about, please correct us.
By the way, that was a complete unintentional pun about the ability for graft. Anyway, so we got the skin substitute products, right? Okay,
Yep.
The Biden rule comes in that says Medicare coverage for these products would be limited to products that are supported by evidence that they're effective.
Okay, that
Seems like a reasonable
fair
rule.
enough rule.
Yes.
Yes.
Because not all of them are.
No.
In preparation for implementing the rule,
Yep.
they determined that 17 products had proven their effectiveness in scientifically valid studies, and so therefore Medicare would cover those 17 products.
Okay.
The rule was meant to come into effect in February 2025.
Yep.
There was an across-the-board blanket regulatory freeze when Trump came in, you might recall, which means nothing was happening in February 2025.
Right.
Everything was pushed back to April 2025.
Yeah.
And then Trump took an active interest in this rule. He tweeted out, "Crooked Joe rammed through a policy that would create more suffering and death for diabetic patients on Medicare. The hardest hit, veterans and minorities." He claimed that Biden's skin substitute rule would result in 431,429 lost limbs annually and 187,286 additional deaths. There's no evidence to support those claims.
Those are incredibly precise numbers.
Very, very precise numbers. Some great prognostication there from Trump. And then when the regulatory freeze ended in April, surprise, surprise, the rule was put off until January 2026. At least. We'll see what happens in January 2026,
Yes.
shall we? Okay. So the first curious thing is it turns out that while the evidence skin substitutes were quite cheap, at say $75 per square inch,
Yes, yeah.
others that were unevidenced were very expensive. Like there was one from a company called Extremity Care. I do take your disclaimer before, Dave, about us not doing ads.
Yeah. No, this doesn't sound like it's going to be an endorsement.
That's right. I think the ABC will be okay with me mentioning this company. Colliderm costs $11,051 per square inch. Another from Extremity Care, Complete FT, costs $7,812 per square inch. Here's the really interesting bit though, Dave. 6 days before Trump's tweet, Extremity Care donated $5 million to MAGA Inc. Now, this donation was not made public until July 31st when MAGA Inc. filed their mid-year report. But now that they've filed that mid-year report, we can now go back in hindsight and go, oh, that's interesting, isn't it?
Yeah.
Between April, when the rule would have gone into effect after the regulatory freeze, had no one intervened, and just July, just now, Medicare has spent another $2.3 billion on skin substitutes, 92% of which would have been excluded by the Biden rule.
Right. So like Dodgy Dave's firm and fast skin substitute.
We can't do ads, Dave. Exactly like that.
Yeah.
So now I hadn't heard about that anywhere except for in Popular.Info. That's a good bit of original reporting.
That is good.
Yeah, and so
The word skin substitute, or the phrase skin substitute, never occurred to me before today.
Yeah. So anyway, I gave you an example. It's so rare these days when people go out on their own, they do completely original reporting. But Judd Legum does. And he does it over and over again. And it's usually very readable and quite brief, but he does the legwork. So, so I am grateful for his work. And especially given the last few PEPs we've talked about the future of journalism.
Yep.
I think this is an example of the future of journalism.
Okay.
People who know what they're doing, going out on their own and doing it cheaply, but effectively.
Yes.
If you're interested, that's Popular.Info if you want to go to Substack, or you can just go into the homework. You can see that story and you can go from there. All right, Dave. There's one update I know you're interested in. So let's do a wash up on trade, because we got to just before August 1 in our last PEP, but that's obviously come and gone since then, and so we've got some more info to talk about.
Yes.
With the tariffs. Firstly, I would like to do a couple of mini updates. Brazil. We mentioned last week how Brazil supplies 90% of America's orange juice.
Yes.
And you noted that it seemed not a coincidence, the mysterious exemption of orange juice from the 50% tariff.
Yeah.
There might be more to it than what you thought, though.
Okay.
Because coffee is an even bigger import from Brazil
Yep.
than orange juice is. But that's not exempted.
No.
What might also be a factor, we don't know, we're reading minds here.
Okay.
But what might also be a factor is that one of the leading lawsuits against the tariffs
Yes.
is being led by an orange juice importer.
Ah.
And that lawsuit is now out of action.
Oh.
Because that orange juice importer is now paying zero tariffs.
Right. So they don't have standing.
So they don't have standing. So that takes care
Wow.
of
So
one
this
lawsuit.
is just to knock out plaintiffs.
Possibly. We're just speculating here.
Well, that's reasonable speculation.
Yeah, it was just interesting. Now, don't worry. There are plenty more lawsuits where
I'm
that came
sure.
from. It's just an interesting observation from someone I thought I'd share. Mexico. We didn't. This hadn't happened when we last spoke. Trump delayed the 30% tariff on Mexico again. This time for 90 more days.
Yes.
They are going to continue to pay the 25% fentanyl tariff, though, and the 25% tariff on cars, and the 50% tariff on steel, aluminium, and copper. But apart from that, he keeps on giving Mexico more time to strike a deal, but no other countries other than China. China and Mexico are the ones he keeps on bending over backwards for.
His two favourite countries.
Yeah. My suspicion is that it's because Mexico's leverage over America because of their help limiting illegal immigrants.
Yes.
And basically, Trump, like many bullies, when someone has the wood on him, just folds immediately.
Yes.
That's my suspicion, but I don't know. It's just a fact that he just keeps on putting off these deals with Mexico,
does. Yes.
which is interesting. But more interesting than that is Europe. And this is why I really want to draw to your attention before I ask you any thoughts you have.
Yep.
We did speak a bit about Europe last week. I read a very interesting piece in the Dispatch, which I'll put in the homework so you can have a look for yourself. And it suggested what the real deal, with the European trade deal might be. Because they had some rather curious provisions in the European trade deal. We're wondering what they were playing at there. This piece made the point that the European Commission, the president of the European Commission, which is von der Leyen, she doesn't have the authority to actually sign a trade agreement herself.
No.
What she can do is initiate a process, maybe start with a framework, which is what she's done.
Yep.
But then she has to hand it over to the European Commission. It has to be approved by the European Commission. Then after that, she has to then gets handed on to the Council of the European Union. Then after that, it goes to the European Parliament.
Yes.
And then after that, maybe the Court of Justice of the European Union takes a bite as well.
Yep.
It's a long, long road.
Yes.
But just on that second stop of the road, let's go back to the second stop. That's the Council of the European Union. Now, a trade agreement to get through there requires 15 of 27 states or countries to support it to get up, right? Unless it's considered a mixed agreement, in which case it needs to be passed unanimously, not just unanimously with all 27 countries, but also it needs to be passed by every one of the 27 countries' national parliaments. So you don't want a mixed agreement if you can avoid it.
No.
A mixed agreement is a deal which involves EU-specified powers, such as agricultural subsidies or trade,
Yep.
plus also political matters, such as taxation, energy, food, investment. It goes on. You can see where this is going.
Yes. Yeah. There's just a couple of alarm bells have just gone off. Yes.
So,
yep.
by promising that the EU would buy $750 billion worth of energy, would invest $600 billion in the US, would remove digital trade barriers, and would change food sanitation rules to allow the US to export pork and dairy to the EU, von der Leyen has just guaranteed the deal will be considered a mixed agreement. And so it all of a sudden has a huge hurdle to overcome, even to get to step 3, let alone to the finish line.
Yes.
So while Europe is spending basically the rest of Trump's term internally arguing over the details of this deal, which would never be finalized.
No.
Europe will be dealing with 15% tariffs instead of 30% tariffs, which is what Trump wanted to give them.
Yes. And with their car manufacturers having a comparative advantage relative to American car manufacturers.
Exactly. Now, a typical trade agreement with Europe takes 3 to 5 years to go through this process. The way von der Leyen has set it up, she's set it with so much baggage, it's probably going to take longer than 3 to 5 years. Also, while the EU has theoretically agreed to invest $600 billion in the US and buy $750 billion worth of energy and to remove digital barriers and to deregulate food sanitation rules, if you read the actual framework that's written down, that she's then bringing back to the European Commission, none of those things are written there in that language.
Yeah.
Instead, they have a lot of very vague language that's specific enough to make it a mixed agreement.
Is it like, here's to many more wonderful secrets?
It's a little bit like that, yes. But it's vague enough that Europe can stick to the framework while really messing with the terms, however they like. Now, of course, if Trump wants to short-circuit this eternal process and fast-track a finished deal, I'm sure Europe will be very happy to accommodate him in return for a few exemptions that will totally defang the tariffs.
Yes.
So Europe may well have done a number on Trump here, as I think we suspected they had, but we weren't quite sure how.
Yes.
Or maybe, to be fair to Trump, he might be awake to this and he might be slapping 35% tariffs on them any week now. We'll find out over the next few weeks and months.
Yeah. I mean, I think last week we came to the conclusion that even if this was all to go into effect tomorrow, it would still probably be better than the other alternatives that were on the table.
Yeah.
Especially since everybody knows there is a strong possibility these tariffs will be ruled illegal at some point in the next couple of years.
Absolutely.
So I think that is one of the things that they're just waiting out.
In terms of the other countries, the trade surplus countries, as in the countries that have trade, that America has a trade surplus with, they get 10% deals.
So it's Australia?
Yep. The trade deficit countries, the countries that America has a trade deficit with, they get 15% deals.
New Zealand is one of the unfortunate countries that is going to pay a higher tariff than what was originally specified on Liberation Day.
Really?
Went from 10 to 15%.
Sucks to be New Zealanders.
Sorry, New Zealand.
Yeah. Countries that Trump thinks really rely on America, or he thinks rip America off, can trade some concession that Trump likes for lower tariffs. Otherwise, they have a special higher rate. We've been through a number of them.
Yes, for example, Myanmar staring down the barrel of 40%.
Yep.
Myanmar, well, theoretically has access to critical minerals, but those critical minerals are in an area of the country not under the control of the government. And part of the country which has fairly easy access to China but not to India.
Yep.
But there is speculation that Trump is actually removing sanctions on members of Burma's military junta in order to facilitate some kind of critical minerals deal.
And this is all starting today, Thursday. So what do you have other things you would like to add about this?
Yeah, look, the other things that I would like to add, not specifically to these cases, but first of all, India. Trump is now threatening India with a 50% tariff.
Yep.
Bear in mind, India exports $130 billion worth of goods to the US. This is not one of the small cases. This is one of the big cases, and this is one of the big ones that Trump was going to present as a symbolic victory. But politically, India's leaders, they cannot take the kind of deal that other places have been taking. They can't take an EU kind of deal. They would just regard that as too much of an affront to the economy and to national sovereignty. So Trump was talking about 25%. It's now 50% because India buys a lot of Russian oil.
Yeah.
So Trump, after he shortened the deadline against Putin from 50 days to 10 days, as we've discussed before, one of the things that he was threatening was secondary tariffs against countries that buy oil from Russia. India is one of the biggest customers. I mean, China's another one of the biggest customers, but that's a whole separate negotiation going on. And yes, so India is getting threatened with that, with what would be 50% tariffs. In his response has been, you cannot be serious. Like we are not going to stop buying Russian oil. India is now officially the biggest country in the world in population terms. It has very, very big energy needs. It can get oil more cheaply from Russia than it can from anywhere else because of the wartime discount that Russia is offering. However bad the effects of an American tariff will be on the Indian economy, just stopping the purchase of Russian oil would be way worse.
You would have thought that this strongly encouraged India to trade with China, surely.
You would have thought that, yes.
Yes. I'm not sure that Trump wants that, does he?
I'm sure he doesn't. No. I mean, one of the things that Trump was trading on was that India has such a difficult relationship with China.
Yeah.
That even though India is like the master kind of hedger in international relations, that poor relationship with China is a pretty consistent thing. And I mean, there was a fatal border skirmish there back in 2020. You want to look that up. It was a weird episode. Like, I think there were no guns, but there were fatalities. Okay. The relations not in a good state. India was supposed to be this really useful anti-China bulwark for the United States. And the whole concept of the Indo-Pacific Quad was based on that idea, which was an idea originally formulated by Japanese and Indian security specialists. So Trump just seems to be throwing all that away in order to make this what many people consider long-delayed move against Putin.
Yeah. Like if in 5 years' time, India, China and Russia are all closer together as a result of this, that would be a massive own goal.
It would be a vast own goal.
Yeah.
Like, as much as I welcome attempts by the US to win the war for Ukraine, this is not a viable way of doing it.
Well, especially if India just ignores them.
Yes.
and he's not even game to even start with China at the moment, it seems. So, and they're the two countries that are the ones that are keeping Russia afloat.
Yeah.
So I don't know if it's going. I mean, look, I also applaud the theory, but I'm not sure it's working.
It is completely implausible.
Yeah.
Yeah.
On the other hand, I guess India can be relieved that Trump originally was talking about 100% secondary sanctions, and now it seems to be 25%.
Yes. And Canada, still no trade agreement. Now, look, it's looking like 35% tariffs, and it looks like Carney would, if he's not going to get what he considers a good trade agreement, he won't take a trade agreement, and it'll be 35%, and they'll have to live with it. That seems to be what they're looking at the moment.
These are still the non-USMCA products.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We should always remember that. There's another sort of interesting area in this, which is there's been a speculation this week from various sources, primarily because of a New York Times article, that since the tariffs have brought in about $152 billion this year so far.
Yep.
And that's twice what they brought in last year at the same period.
Yes.
That this could become an addictive revenue source for the government.
Yes.
And that the Democrats may well keep the tariffs when they get in. That's what this article was suggesting.
We have to keep in mind that even though this sounds like a colossal amount of money, US revenue every year is about $4 trillion.
That's my first point.
And income tax is more than $2 trillion.
2.4.
Of that. So the idea of this one day replacing income tax is a total pipe dream.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Now, the idea, this is great revenue, we don't want to lose it. Okay, first of all, how stable a source of that revenue is that going to be? If this tariffs actually work the way that they're supposed to work, that is going to reduce consumption of foreign products, which will presumably reduce the revenue that tariffs generate. So I don't know if that's going to be a consistent source of revenue.
It's a very big if it works the way it's meant to work.
Yes. Yeah, true. True. Okay, so let's assume then that this source of revenue does remain in place. I would have thought it would be better for Democrats to push for the end of the Trump tax cuts. Now, obviously, that would be a pretty politically difficult thing to do. And so politically, it might be easier just to leave the tariffs in place. On the other hand, the Democrats could really be looking at a scenario where getting rid of the tariffs would reduce prices by some significant amount and would be an incredibly popular political move. Like, yes, I mean, the whole thing like, politicians are addicted to revenue. They'll never give up a tax once they get it. You always hear businessmen talking about this. Right? And that New York Times article was a bit of a sort of that kind of mouthpiece. Like, no, politicians are addicted to staying in office.
Yes.
That's the big thing that they're addicted to. That is their primary motivation. And I imagine that there will be a point where it's quite politically popular to jettison these tariffs. Yeah.
Just to pick up on your first point about the fact that actually $152 billion is not as much money as you think in budgetary terms.
Yeah.
At the moment, tariffs are looking like they're about 4% of revenue.
Yes.
Yeah, so that puts it in context. And as you say, income tax is like half of revenue.
Yep.
It's like it's $2.4 trillion versus $4.7 trillion in revenue a year. And so it's not that much money to give up in context. But there are two major reasons why I think we should emphasize that. It's not that much money really.
Yeah.
But there are two major advantages that tariffs have, at least right now.
Yeah.
One is the way Trump is using them right now, he's ignoring Congress.
Yes.
Now, Supreme Court may not let him do that. But if they do, it's very rare that the president can unilaterally raise revenue without having to go through Congress.
Yeah.
That's a real advantage.
What I can imagine is Supreme Court lets Trump do it, then a Democratic president comes to power, and then there's some other case that is slightly different, and all of a sudden Supreme Court is like, how dare you, sir?
That may be the case.
That is what I suspect is going to happen.
Sadly, I am starting to join the cynical side on the Supreme Court.
Yes.
I tried very hard to fight the good fight for them for a long time, but I'm starting to give up.
No.
Well, I'll be interested to see how they rule on this particular question, because I think this is pretty cut and dry. At least it should be cut and dry.
Yes. Yeah. This to me looks like what should be a 7-2 decision.
Yeah. So
Yes.
Let's see.
Yeah.
It's a nice test. But also with assuming the Supreme Court don't stop Democrats from imposing tariffs, Americans, including Democrats, have shown a complete inability in the past to raise taxes.
Yes.
Other than maybe on the super rich. Like every single year, the Democrats go, we'll raise taxes on the super rich. But look, in 2013, Obama makes Bush's income tax cuts permanent, except for those who are earning less than $400,000, which is 82% of the tax cuts. That's what they kept. Then in 2024, Kamala Harris vows to extend Trump's tax cuts for those earning less than $400,000 again.
And by the way, if you don't remember at the time, what Obama wanted was $200,000.
Yeah.
That still puts you in the top 10% of income earners.
Easy.
The compromise was $400,000, and you should have heard the Republican whining about it at the time. End of the Republic. Welcome to socialism, America. Republicans have given away the store for nothing in return.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's hard to raise taxes. That's what I'm saying.
Yep.
But it's not hard to raise tariffs if the Supreme Court lets them. It's certainly not hard to keep tariffs, which is what we're talking about here. There's a second factor with tariffs.
Yes.
Every time you impose a tariff, you create a new lobbyist to retain that tariff.
Yes. Yeah.
Because tariffs vaguely suck for the general community, but they really, really are awesome for one particular interest group, whoever that may be for that particular tariff. And when you try and take that tariff off of them, they'll squeal like a stuck pig.
That's right.
And you're not going to be thanked by the general unwashed for vaguely taking off a tariff, but you'll get punished by the interest group for sure.
This raises for me one of the really interesting things about these tariffs, which is this is the first case I can think of where major sweeping tariffs have been introduced without actually a significant economic coalition behind them. When you look at other times when big tariffs were introduced by Republicans in the late 19th century or in the 1930s or in Germany in the late 19th century, or even, certain post-war tariffs that have been introduced, there's always been a significant economic coalition behind it. Because as you say, tariffs will always benefit one sector specifically. So you need a lot of sectors getting together, particularly sectors with powerful political patrons, in order to make the tariffs happen. Prior to Trump getting elected, there actually wasn't a huge clamoring for tariffs. Now, that's not to say that everyone was against them. Like, unions were in favour of bringing back certain tariffs. And there were some sectors that were more in favour of tariffs, but it was nothing like the really kind of powerful coalitions that have been behind tariffs before. The whole international multilateral trade regime that the US put in place had really changed the face of American politics in that respect. And when people complained about free trade, often the remedy that they were demanding wasn't tariffs, it was something else. They were usually actually demanding legal standards. They were demanding crackdowns, for example, on certain Chinese practices, not counter tariffs against China. It's a really kind of unusual episode of tariffs being put in without these colossal economic coalitions behind them. And also without much of an ideological coalition behind it either. Like, this is really just Trump.
Yeah, it is.
The number of people calling for tariffs was so few before Trump came in that nearly all of them ended up in Trump's administration. This is how Pina Navarro got in. Like, find an economist who's actually written a book in favour of tariffs. And as I've said before, when you look at some of the more convincing arguments for tariffs from people like Michael Pettis, they aren't for these massive sweeping tariffs that we're seeing now. They're for these very specifically targeted and stable things with very specific and time-limited aims. Every time you create a tariff, you will create a lobbyist. So now Trump may well create a big pro-tariff coalition. But this is not how it started, and that is very historically unusual.
Yeah, no, that's a fair point. And the other thing I'd say as well about with Democrats in particular is, like I have said many times, I'm going to keep on saying, I'm sure that the next presidential term is going to be about the debt, like the 2028 to 2032
of course,
term.
Yes.
And if there's a Democrat there, like, they are going to have to raise money somehow.
Yes.
They're going to want to have some kind of program. They're going to want to have childcare or pre-K or something that isn't just tax hikes and tough bitter medicine. And I don't know how they're going to pay for that, because debt is going to be a massive issue, and tariffs is just going to be sitting there tempting. Now, I actually suspect they are going to get rid of tariffs, because I think that we are heading for a poor economic period.
Yes.
And I think the tariffs will be 100% blamed for that.
Yep.
And so it will be just too easy a promise to make. Well, we'll get rid of them. It's going to be tempting.
Yep.
It's going to be tempting for them to keep them. That's all I'm saying. Anyway,
Yes.
it's enough on that. We're already on the economics. Let's keep on going on the economic data.
Speaking of heading for a poor economic period.
Tell us all about this week, Dave.
Okay, so there have been some rather disturbing economic numbers released this week. Before we get to the job numbers, which were the big ones.
Yeah, there's a few others.
Yeah. But let's start with inflation, which is the one that everybody has been watching. So that was 2.7% in June. It was 2.4% before that, which that was widely interpreted as, not as bad as we thought it was going to be given tariffs. 2.7%, that was widely interpreted as, tariffs are actually having an effect. That the effect had been muted beforehand because of things like companies stockpiling a lot of imported goods, some companies eating the cost in order not to lose market share before it became certain. But now it's starting to kick in. And now that it's looking like these tariffs are actually really in place, Like, I don't see Trump budging from these 10 and 15% tariffs, right? So now that we've got a baseline that's there, now I think we are going to start to see more and more companies raising costs.
Just before you say more about this, can I just specify for people who might not be, but might be a bit confused, there are two different kinds of inflation rate.
Yep.
There's a CPI and there's a PCE.
Yes.
Now you're referring to this week it was the PCE.
Yep.
Which was that stands for personal consumption expenditure.
Mm-hmm.
The difference between the CPI and the PCE is the CPI is the classic inflation where they're measuring the cost of a basket of goods, and that basket of goods does not change.
No.
It's always the same basket of goods, and they change how the price, and they measure how the price changes over time.
Yes.
That's what the CPI is. The PCE is a little different. That's broader. It's not just one basket of goods. There's broader measures of spending. Also, it tracks actual changes in consumer spending overall and adjusts what the spending is based on.
Yep.
So as substitutes happen in spending, it follows that.
Yes.
So it's considered to be more accurate for that reason, which is why the Federal Reserve only cares about this one. The Federal Reserve ignores the CPI. It cares about the PCE, and it's always looking for a 2% target for PCE. So when Dave's talking about 2.7%, that's significantly more than 2%.
Yes.
Yeah.
And as far as consumer spending goes as well, Heather Long pointed out in the Washington Post today, consumer spending is up 1.4% this year. That is anemic.
Yes.
So it was up 3% last year.
Yeah.
And she also pointed out that now the top 10% of income accounts for 50% of consumption. Top 10% is always accounted for a lot. Like 36% is a fairly normal amount, but 50%, that is a lot. So she was looking at the things that have and haven't suffered. Luxury brands, restaurants, that's all doing well at the moment. It's, at the lower end.
So does that mean there isn't much more room for growth on spending? If the rich people are already spending a huge amount of that money, there isn't much room for growth.
That's right, and there's only so many of them, to spend on stuff. So that's not good.
The other thing we should mention as well is core versus normal.
Yep.
When we're talking like the sort of regular inflation is one thing, but what the Reserve cares about, the Federal Reserve cares about, is core inflation, and that is inflation. That is the price of goods minus food and energy, because they are a bit more volatile.
Yes.
And so it's kind of the underlying inflation rate. Lockie has a graph of what we're talking about here. These are the two inflation rates over the last few years. The normal one is the grey. It's 2.6% or 2.7%. But the core is the blue line. If you're looking at this, you'll see that for the last year and a half, it's been just anchored on 2.8%. It's not really going up or down, and the Federal Reserve wants it to go down.
Yes, because keep in mind, if the inflation rate is not going up or down, that means prices are going up.
Yes.
This is something that often gets confused in the discourse, especially by Trump himself. If the inflation rate goes down, he talks about it as if prices are going down.
No.
Prices are not going down there. If inflation is coming down, they're just going up at a slower rate. But at the moment, that's not happening.
No, which vindicates the Fed Reserve not lowering interest rates, which they did not do last week.
Now, another piece of data that might have been weighing on the Federal Reserve was GDP.
Oh, hang on. Sorry, I know I'm interrupting you a lot, but before we get to GDP, I've got a few other things to say about inflation.
Okay.
The annualized rate of last month, as in the rate it was increasing just for that month.
Yep.
If you extrapolate over a year, it was 3.1%. So it's starting actually to speed up again, just slightly. That's important. Is that because of tariffs is the question. Let me give you some strong evidence that it is because of tariffs. Over the last 3 months, the price of non-housing services, such as air travel or car insurance, they grew at 1.85% annualized rate. So those kinds of services are what drove inflation for the last few years under Biden.
Yep.
those prices have continued to fall. They're now below 2%. But at the same time, core goods prices rose at an annualized rate of 3.7% in the second quarter. In fact, this year, we've seen the highest 6-month rise in PCE durable goods prices, durable goods, like white goods and all that kind of stuff, since 1987. In fact, this year, the price growth has been concentrated in trade-sensitive goods, such as home furnishings and electronics.
Yep.
So that suggests if imported goods were not more expensive all of a sudden, then the inflation rate would be at 2%.
Yes.
And you know why imported goods might be more expensive? Tariffs.
Because of tariffs.
So the tariffs are actually costing Trump his interest rate cut.
Yes.
The Federal Reserve, if it was 2%, there'd be an interest rate cut.
Yeah.
And so the fact that what that PCE inflation rate tells us is yes, the tariffs are biting and they're biting interest rate cuts.
Yes. Now, Trump's various mouthpieces have been making the argument that you hear from time to time, which is tariffs aren't really inflationary because it's just a one-off price increase and that's it.
Yeah.
Federal Reserve is not buying that.
They are not.
Federal Reserve says no, it can continue to have inflationary effects, which makes sense when you think of the economic damage that tariffs can do.
They can. And we'll talk more about that in a second. I'll just say one more thing on inflation and then we move on to your GDP. They might not be good for Trump, but it's a godsend for Democrats who finally have hit on a message that sounds like an election message.
Yes.
I'll play you Elizabeth Warren.
Remember, Donald Trump ran for office saying he would lower costs on day one. Cost of groceries are up, cost of housing is up, cost of health care is up. And where is Donald Trump? He's passing a signature bill to throw people off their health care so he can do tax cuts for billionaires. Democrats are the people who say billionaires actually should pay their fair share and that we need to focus on affordability for American families. And that's what we're out there fighting for.
Okay, that sounds like a message. And Trump clearly recognized that because he tweeted about that nonstop for about half an hour. He saw that and he wasn't happy. And I love Pocahontas tweets all of a sudden. And I just might note that according to last week's Morning Consult poll, 63% blame Trump for rising grocery prices. Nearly 8 out of 10 Americans, including 70% of Republicans, fear that Trump's tariffs will increase the price of everyday goods.
Yep.
Take it away on the GDP.
Okay, so GDP came in higher than expected for the second quarter of 2025, 3%. It had been minus 0.5% in the first quarter. Now, you might think, good news? Well, not for Trump, because that's another piece of evidence for the Fed not to cut interest rates.
That's true.
That suggests that the economy is robust enough that it can continue to deal with interest rates as they are.
Although, ironically, it's not a sign of a robust economy.
It's not a sign of a robust economy.
Yeah.
That's actually a sign of falling imports. Now, I think there was a lot of debate about the last time you waded into this relationship between import and GDP territory.
We did talk about this, yes.
But in terms of the reporting of GDP, falling imports do play a big role.
Yeah, look, it's not a direct role.
No.
It's an indirect role.
Yes.
That's the confusion.
Yeah,
a lot of people act like they say, the formula of GDP has imports in there. No, that's a misunderstanding of the formula of GDP. But indirectly, when people are doing more importing, they're not spending on some other things that do factor into GDP.
Yeah.
That's the issue there.
Yes.
But the main thing is when forgetting the arguments we had last time, not you and me, but me and listeners.
And the internet.
Yes. One thing everyone agreed on was that the reason why there was a shrinking of the economy by 0.5% was because of one-off factors related to the tariffs.
Yeah.
And they said, look, this is half the story.
Yes, yeah.
Wait till the next quarter, there will be a rebound, and then average the two, and you'll have a better story.
That's right.
And that's where we're at now.
Yes.
So you average 3 minus a half divided by 2. And what you get is 1.25% growth for the year.
Yes.
Which is not good.
Last year was
2.8% off the top of my head. Let me just check that.
Yeah. It seems to be slightly more than double what we've had this year.
Yes, it was 2.8% last year.
Yeah.
And projected for this year, in case you're wondering, the BEA, the Bureau of Economic Analysis, projected GDP growth of 2.1%, and it's 1.2%.
Yes.
So that's not good.
Not actually good, but as I say, not bad enough for the Fed to cut interest rates.
Sadly.
This brings us to the jobs figures.
Dave, you keep on racing along. No. Just give me a second here.
We've only got 3 hours, but anyway.
We're talking economics, Dave. You know what I'm going to do. But let's just break down the components of the GDP for a second.
Okay.
If you break down the numbers further, they get worse. Consumption in 2024 was up 3.4% last year.
Yep.
Now it's up 0.9% for this half. Productivity grew at 2.1% in 2024. Productivity is crucial for wage growth and for the economy to kick along.
Yep.
This half, it's growing at 0. Business investment was also half of last year's rate, which is particularly bad because given right now, tech companies are spending their asses off on AI. Like huge amounts of spending. Now, I should do Stats Nugget on this one. There we go. Did you know that right now, Google spends more on physical capital, like data centers, etc., for AI, than the entire UK defence budget?
Wow.
$85 billion a year to $79 billion a year. These tech companies are spending a lot on business investment at the moment. And even so, they're still tanking business investment nationally. There was one bright spot we should acknowledge, which is aggregate weekly payrolls were 5.3% higher in July than 1 year earlier. So there is spending power, but it's not been harnessed because people are obviously concerned about the times.
They are.
And I think we know why.
Yes.
It's that uncertainty, again. As of last week, Yale's budget lab estimated Trump's tariffs would lower real GDP growth annually by 0.5%. So maybe that's what's happening.
Yep.
And the Federal Reserve of Dallas estimated in July that Trump's immigration policies will lower annual GDP growth by about 0.8%.
There was a good article in The Conversation, actually, about this effect of tariffs on GDP and how the US compared to other countries in the effect that the tariffs were going to have. And what they found was the US is going to be one of the hardest hit countries from American tariffs. So in terms of percentage, it's Switzerland is going to be hardest hit. So Switzerland has also not yet reached a deal.
No.
Yeah, minus 0.47, followed by Thailand, minus 0.44, Taiwan, minus 0.38, then the US, minus 0.36, then China, minus 0.34, Vietnam, minus 0.3, South Korea, minus 0.29. Brazil only minus 0.19.
Even with a 50% tariff?
Even with 50% tariffs. And in the positives, Australia, 0.01%. UK, 0.07%.
There you go.
Take that, Keir Starmer critics.
Okay, Dave. Now tell us about the employment report.
Okay. So the employment report, as I'm sure everybody has heard now, featured a significant downward revision of the number of jobs created in May and June.
Yeah.
That downward revision overall was 258,000 across those months, including a 133,000 downward revision for June from what was originally estimated 206,000 jobs to 73,000 jobs. Before we get into the reactions to this, I think it's just appropriate to say some things about how these statistics are collected and why these kinds of revisions occur.
Sure.
So this is based on 2 surveys that are conducted. One is a 60,000 household survey. The other one, which is considered the better source of data, is a survey of 119,000 companies. Typically what happens is that bigger companies which employ more people and which are also a bit kind of insulated against economic pressure, they report first.
Yep.
Small businesses that are more likely to be affected earlier by economic trends, they tend to report a little bit later.
Yeah.
So over the course of 2 months, you always get these revisions to figures. Since this has been going on since 1965, the overall accuracy measured in terms of how big the final revisions are has actually got a lot better. It's got from, I think it was 0.9% was the average when it first began to it's only 0.2% now. But you do occasionally get big revisions happening. Can you get the circumstances under which big revisions happen? It's when things are happening in the economy. Bad things.
Unpredictable things.
Happening in the economy. So what Trump has been saying about the fact that there is this big downward revision is evidence in itself of skullduggery. No, it is not. Admittedly, this was the biggest downward revision since the pandemic.
And to be honest, I think we got a graph on this one.
Yep.
This is actually the biggest adjustment for 2 months ever in measurements.
Right.
Other than for 2 months during the pandemic.
Right.
That crazy 2 months during the pandemic. Other than that is literally the 258,000 when you add up those 2 months together.
Yes.
That's the biggest full stop.
Yes. There were downward revisions during the Biden years as well.
Certainly were, famously so.
With the same BLS chief. So they estimated at the end of 2024 that actually 579,000 fewer jobs had been created than was the original estimate. Although I think that they had said it was going to be 800,000, but then that revision got revised.
Yes, 818,000.
Trump was furious about the revision of the revision, which came after the election, so it didn't help Biden in any way, but nonetheless absolutely furious about it. But he has mangled that story to say that, they were talking up the economy before the election, then only after the election did they tell the truth. No, that is not what happened.
On to your claim that revision helped Biden hurt you for the 800,000. It was in August. There was still plenty of time for voters to see that those weren't real jobs.
After the election in November, I believe it was in November something. There was a massive revision downward on
the
jobs.
First one, the 800,000 or 900,000, I think, was in August, and then later it came out in March of 2025. It went to 598, not 818. But the original one.
Well, listen, 598. But there were other revisions downward from prior to the election because the numbers were rigged. Okay, and as you said, the number. Look, you take a look after the election. How many revisions downward there were? But let's get back to Texas.
Yeah.
Okay, so he's pretty confused.
Yes.
Well, we'll come back to this. Let's go back a little and we'll work our way back up to this confusion and try and explain it all as we go.
I think it's worth pointing out that the collection of data does have problems.
Yes.
And the biggest problem is that the response rate to the surveys has dropped. It's now at 43%. It was at 60% prior to the pandemic.
Although the last one was at 60%.
Right.
Like the one they's revised got back to 60%. But basically they've spent, since the pandemic, gradually dragging their way back. And 60% is still pathetic.
Yeah.
That's still not good.
Yeah. It's good by the standards of an ordinary survey, but something this important, it's still not. But however, you don't fix that problem by cutting the budget of the BLS, which is what Trump has been doing.
Okay, let me just go back a little bit and let's work our way back here because we've skipped past a few things. The first of which is we need to explain part of why this employment report is such a problem. Like it's all very well to just say not many jobs, but it's worse than that. It's really not many jobs. The average of 85,000 jobs added per month this year, which is what it is now after those revisions, is the weakest number since the GFC in 2010. For the entire year. And this is not just for the revisions, for the entire year. Last year, there were 168,000 jobs per month added. And that wasn't a great year. But they're now half that. So that's the first thing. Second thing is, where are the jobs being lost? The federal government lost another 12,000 jobs this month, down 84,000 since the start of the year. Well, that's Trump's fault. They did it on purpose. Scientific research has lost 11,000 jobs this year. That's not a good thing. Not a good place you want to lose jobs. Manufacturing employment has gone down. It went down 11,000 this month. It's really down 37,000 jobs in the last 3 months. Now, to be fair, this is a graph for manufacturing employment over the last few years. You can see it's going down generally. But you can see it particularly fell in April 2025 on Liberation Day, which is the killer. The whole point of tariffs is to boost manufacturing.
Yep.
In reality, of course, the prices have risen on American manufacturers as well. Take Ford, for instance. Ford builds vehicles in the US more than any other automaker, 1.8 million vehicles last year. They're employing 57,000 workers in the Midwest, yet they still pay 50% tariffs for their steel and aluminium because of these stupid tariffs, and 25% tariffs on the car parts they buy. Now,
let us just reiterate, one of the things that is so bad about the steel and aluminium tariffs is these ones are actually legal.
yes.
In other words,
true.
these are the ones that
They're to
could
stay.
actually remain in place.
Yeah.
Even if all of the others get knocked down.
Yeah.
So, yeah, he's actually really screwing the auto industry.
He really is. Well, let me tell you how much. Ford, just in the last quarter, paid $800 million in tariffs for 1 quarter. This is the most American automotive company, paying GM is spending $1.1 billion in tariffs for a quarter.
Yes.
But Ford is as good as it gets as far as American made and American. And it's $800 million in tariffs is what they're spending. Now you might go, well, why don't they just buy American steel and American car parts? They don't exist.
No.
There just isn't enough supply.
Yeah.
And
what are they getting in return? They get to go to Japan and say, hey, want to buy a car that's bigger than your apartment?
I'll tell you what Ford should do. Ford should just go to Japan because it would be cheaper. Because of what we said before.
Physically go.
Yeah, they should just relocate to Japan.
Yeah.
And then sell cars from Japan with a 15% tariff rather than the 50% they're spending for steel here in America. So anyway, so in the meantime, and by the way, no surprise, automotive companies are laying off heaps of people because of this. So that's how manufacturing goes down.
Yes.
With
and when
tariffs.
automotive companies lay people off in places like Michigan and Ohio, there are dozens of other industries that go under
100%.
at the same time.
While we're showing some graphs, let me show you the graph for employment from trade, transport, and utilities. That went up under Biden, but have a look. Since April 2025, Liberation Day, it's going down under Trump. The only sector that seems to be producing jobs in the last 3 months, the healthcare sector.
Yes.
Now, let me tell you why that's so bad. That's so bad because the healthcare sector is isolated from broader economic conditions.
That's right.
No matter what happens, people get sick, right?
Yep.
So they just keep on going on. Like they make their money and they...
When we say the healthcare sector is growing, what we're saying is America is producing more old people.
Exactly. People get old, people get sick. It happens regardless of whatever you do to the economy. Trump can't ruin that part of the economy, but he's ruined the rest of it, right? During the Biden years, the Trumpists used to criticize the Biden numbers as being overly boosted by healthcare jobs. Have a look at private employment minus healthcare. How's this for a graph? You can see over the last 2 years, it's going up quite steadily. Have a look under Trump. Since January 2025, the employment growth other than healthcare is zero. Literally zero. That's a straight line in 2025. So this is bad news for Trump.
One of the things I find really interesting is this was actually different from his first term. His first term continued on the economic trajectory of modest but steady growth that Obama had set. And Trump actually, his administration did genuinely create jobs by opening up the field for extractive industries. I won't say that that was good for America or for the world overall, but it did actually create employment. He wants to do the same thing this time, except it's economically unviable for companies to create the kinds of jobs that he wants because of where commodities prices are at the moment. So some of the kind of magic of the first term is just not there in the second term. The world has changed. Circumstances have changed.
Well, and Trump has pushed Trumpism a lot further as well.
He has.
He was a bit more orthodox in his first term.
Yes.
Okay, so I should be fair, there is one positive, which is, once again, wages. Average hourly earnings have increased by 3.9% over the last 12 months.
Yep.
That's above inflation rates.
Yes.
But it's not going to last long if you're creating zero jobs. Okay, I'll tell you that right now. So that takes us, that's the background.
Yep.
That takes us to the revisions now, right?
Yes.
The only thing I'd say, you explained it all very well. The only thing I'd add to the revisions thing that Dave was saying is that there is actually, there are two kinds of revisions. There's the monthly revisions, which is when people get their surveys in late.
Yep.
And also when there's adjustments to seasonal calculations.
Yes.
Because when they first put out the economic results, so the jobs growth results, they're kind of assuming that people are on holidays the same amount that they usually are, that people have the same amount of summer jobs as usual, there's the same amount of fruit picking as usual. They don't know. They're just guessing at this point in time. A month later, they actually start to find out.
Yes.
And they start to adjust their seasonal calculations then.
Yeah.
Right? And so that can create revisions.
Yes.
And then more survey results. Dave mentioned that there's 60%, 43 to 60% over the last few years response rate in the first survey. By the time you get to the third survey, 2 months later, it's 95% response rate. So they get more information and on both the survey results and the seasonal calculations.
Yep.
They're the first kind of revisions.
Yes.
The second kind of revisions when you get the actual numbers, not survey numbers, not calculation aids, but actual tax data and unemployment insurance data, which tells you literally every single job in the country. Then you know 100% for sure what the number is. That happens once a year.
Yes.
You know when that time is? September. What's the month at the moment? It's August.
It is August.
What that tells you is those revisions you've just seen, there's a big revision coming next month.
Yes.
It might be so much worse.
It could be.
It might be negative.
Yes.
We just don't know. So there is that as well.
Yes.
And if it is, get ready for an almighty tantrum from Trump.
Yes.
But that's not anyone's fault.
No.
That's just how it works.
Yes.
The big 818,000 that became 589,000 adjustment last year was because of that annual return, right?
Yeah, yeah.
It's, the annual adjustment.
Yes.
Oh, yeah, one other thing I should say as well that makes this all so humiliating for Trump, which it informs why he sacked the BLS chief, is I can't tell you how much his people were prancing around the last couple of months, acting like he was an economic genius, because the economists kept on saying, we're expecting these tariffs and the uncertainty to have some effect. And it didn't seem to be having any effect.
Yes.
And then people were wondering, well, where's the effect? And so Trump's people were going, well, it's the Trump effect.
Yes.
Trump knew more than the economists, didn't he?
Yes.
So, for instance, Pierre Navarro was saying things like this.
You know, a lot of people, Maria, talk about Donald Trump for the Peace Prize, the Nobel Peace Prize. I'm thinking that since he's basically taught the world trade economics, he might be up for the Nobel on economics.
And Scott Bessent went one better.
The president is the most economically sophisticated president, certainly for 100 years, perhaps in history.
In history. So,
look, I don't know what sophisticated means, but that sounds accurate given the way the economy is going.
Yeah, I think America's feeling sophisticated right now, I have to say. And so when these revisions came out, he looked like a massive chump. And that's why, presumably, he lashed out.
He did lash out.
So, yeah, go on.
Yeah, these revisions were apparently expected by seasoned observers because there was something very weird in the original survey about much higher than expected school employment, given that June is the time that schools are laying people off.
Yes.
So they knew that a revision like this was coming. This was not unexpected at all.
Yeah, it turned out there was over 100,000 fewer people employed in public schools than they thought they were in June. And that is the main reason. I know people don't like it when I quote Trump, but, you know, Let's just quote his lash out in case you haven't seen
Yes.
it. I was just informed that our country's job numbers are being produced by a Biden appointee, Dr. Erica McIntyre, the Commissioner of Labour Statistics, who faked the jobs numbers before the election to try and boost Kamala's chances of victory. We need accurate jobs numbers. I have directed my team to fire this Biden appointee immediately. She'll be replaced with someone much more competent and qualified. In important numbers like this must be fair and accurate. They can't be manipulated for political purposes. The economy is booming under Trump, in inverted commas, despite the Fed that also plays games, this time with interest rates where they lowered them twice and substantially just before the presidential election, I assume in the hopes of getting Kamala elected. How'd that work out, Jerome? Too late, pal. He should also be put out to pasture. Thank you for your attention to this matter. Drink.
The incredible irony of this, of course, is those revised numbers are the strongest evidence possible that the Federal Reserve should be cutting interest rates.
Yes, he should embrace it.
So the people who, for some reason, put percentages on these are now saying that there's an 80% likelihood of an interest rate cut at the next Federal Reserve meeting.
Yeah.
Right. This could have been evidence Trump had actually could point to and say, see, Mr. Too Late? Too late! But no. Instead, even though he managed to abuse Jerome Powell in a tweet, he just disputes the numbers altogether.
I just want to pick up on when you're explaining how the revisions work, just to add a couple of elements to that. You were talking about the employment survey, the 121,000 business survey. Okay, what a lot of people have been saying, and I think not unreasonably, if they don't know how it works, is they go, well, you should still be more competent with your surveys than this. Even with 60% response rate, you should be able to do better than this. I think there's a few things they don't realise. The first thing is that you are asked to estimate as a business exactly the number of employees you have in the week of the 12th day of the month. Now, not everyone is going to keep track of that kind of thing.
No.
You might go, well, isn't it the same number of employees you have the week after? No, it's not.
No.
There are 4 million jobs changing hands in America each month. 4 million. That means out of this survey, there are heaps of businesses where they have different numbers of employees for different weeks of the month. And it can be complicated to work out this.
Yes.
And guess which people are going to respond the slowest? They'll be the people who are most confused and the people who are most busy and most not on top of it and most likely to make a mistake.
Yes.
And if you make the tiniest mistake, it makes a huge difference. This is what no one understands, as far as I can see. At least it's in the press. Because they go, 258,000. What a huge revision. That's so many jobs. How can you screw that up? 258,000 off? What they don't realise is they're not estimating the number of jobs that have been created. What they're estimating is the number of jobs in the country.
Yes.
Which means the denominator is way bigger than you think it is, right? So let me put this in terms of numbers. What they actually estimated in this case here was that there were 159.724 million jobs is what they estimated in June. In reality, it was 149.466 million jobs. That's only a 0.161% error. 0.1% of an error. It's nothing. That equals 258,000 jobs being off. So what seems like a massive error is actually a tiny error.
Yes, yeah.
Which when you consider they're only getting 60% of the surveys and they have to guess half of their calculations, is a minor miracle they get that close.
Yes. And remember what we said earlier, the accuracy has actually improved significantly.
Totally.
Over time. Yeah.
So that's the first thing I just want to just make sure to back over, all right? Another thing I just wanted to back over as well is people go, well, why can't you just wait a little while until you get accurate results? I've already told you why. It's because you need to wait a year for accurate results. If you want the unemployment rate, the rate to come out once a year, then you can have it absolutely accurate.
Yes.
If you want to have it close to accurate, then you can just wait 3 months. And then you can get a pretty accurate response.
Yes.
If you want every month, I'm sorry, the nature of the beast is there has to be some guesswork happening.
That's right.
There is an alternative, and that is you spend more money on the survey.
Yes.
And you survey way more people, way more thoroughly. Like you just spend more money. And
Someone doesn't get the result and you follow up within a week.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, and they just no one wants to spend that money. So you just need to make a choice. You can't just blame people when there's an impossible task.
No.
Yeah.
Especially you can't just blame the head of the Bureau of Labour Statistics.
Yes.
She is not there on Excel doing the numbers herself.
She doesn't even see the number until it's finished.
Yes, she approves the final press release.
There are 2,000 people who put these numbers together.
Yes.
2,000.
And this is another thing that's beyond Trump's comprehension.
Yes.
Okay, the United States government is not a fly-by-night New York real estate operation which has one accountant doing the numbers who's there because he knew Fred Trump from the Klan days in Queens, okay? Everything like this, it's a scientific enterprise. There are huge numbers of people involved. Erica McIntyre, if she wanted to manipulate the numbers, would have no ability to do so. It's that simple.
I'm glad you raised that because where we're going to be going soon is to are the numbers suspect now after the sacking. But just before we get there, I want to back over about Trump's accusations of politicization.
Mm-hmm.
Let me just read his original tweet and then I'll respond to it. In my opinion, today's job numbers were rigged in order to make the Republicans and me look bad. Just like when they had 3 great days around the 2024 presidential election, and then those numbers were taken away on November 15th, 2024, right after the election, when the jobs numbers were massively revised downward, making a correction of 818,000 jobs. A total scam. Jerome Too Late Powell is no better. Just brings him up as a drive-by. But the good news is our country's doing great. Trump provide detail there, which is excellent. Unfortunately, the detail's bullshit. Okay, so Trump said, just like when they had 3 great days around the 2024 presidential election, then those numbers were taken away on November 15th, 2024, right after the election, when the jobs numbers were massively revised downward, making a correction of over 818,000 jobs. The 818,000 correction actually came out in August 2024.
Yep.
Which was decidedly not convenient for Democrats going into the election. And Trump should remember that correction because he had a field day back in August 2024. This is a clip from there.
818,000 jobs they defrauded the public. They thought it was going to hang out until after the election, but there was a leaker in statistics in the Department of Labor that released the information. Almost 1 million people, they said, had jobs. We created new jobs. It turned out to be a total fraud.
So he invented a fake leaker. That was an official revision. It wasn't a leak.
Yeah, it had an official press release approved by the head of the Bureau of Labour Statistics.
That's a very canny leaker. Also, you notice how back then the revision downwards was evidence that the president was being fraudulent. But now a revision downwards is evidence that the president's been victimised. Let's leave that aside. So they had 818,000 revision before the election. Then after the election, which is what we were talking about before, in February 2025 was when the revision got revised to 589,000 fewer jobs. We didn't find that out till after the election, when it would have been more handy before the election for the Democrats. So that's setting up the Joe Kernan trying to explain to Trump and him being confused, right?
Yes.
Okay, now let's talk about all the downward revisions after the election, because he's saying there are all these downward revisions after the election in that clip we played before. You know what the final jobs figure was before the election? Do you know this?
No.
This is 2 days before the election. The final jobs created figure for the Biden administration was 12,000 jobs.
12,000.
12,000. And you know what happened just after the election?
What?
They revised that number up to 36,000.
Oh, that's right. I remember this now. Yes. No, it's still not exactly setting the world on fire.
But you know what the next numbers were for the next month?
Yeah.
There were 227,000 new jobs created. Does that sound like they were trying to rig the election for Biden? Doesn't sound like it to me. Basically, Trump could not be more wrong with all this. Like, everything he said is the opposite of right.
Yes.
Like I know this is about stats, and I know that Trump dropped a nugget. This is not a stats nugget. It's a different kind of nugget. It's just infuriating, though, that he keeps on getting away with this shit. But the person I want to back over here is Kevin Hassett, who's his economic council head. I know Trump's brain is Swiss cheese, but Kevin Hassett is sharp as a tack. He knows what he's doing. And this is how he tried to make the argument work for his boss in a way that was at least factually accurate.
There was a 818,000 revision making the Joe Biden job record a lot worse that came out after he withdrew from the presidential campaign. There have been a bunch of patterns that could make people wonder.
He had his timing right this time. The revision did come out after Joe Biden pulled out of the race. But the idea that they held the revised numbers over till after Biden dropped out of the race. It's just obvious bullshit. And Hassett knows that.
Yes. Yeah.
It doesn't make any sense at all. It's such bad faith. And that makes me really angry because that's what enables Trump, that kind of shit.
Yes.
Like smarter people than Trump backing over to try and make it kind of make sense.
It's not unexpected coming from Kevin Hassett.
No, I know. Okay, so now I've gotten up to where you were. I've got 2 points I want to make from here. But you might. I want to make the point about just how bad faith Trump's critiques are.
Yep.
And I also want to make the point how a lot of the problems faced by Erica
McIntyre.
Thank you, McIntyre, were created by Trump himself.
Yes. Okay. No, go.
Okay. All right. Okay. Well, first of all, the bad faith. Then it's been incredibly irritating watching Trump bitching about rigged and fake job numbers and sacking the BLS chief over these supposedly fake numbers, but then citing the exact same numbers when they suit his agenda.
And if you look at the jobs report last week, it did show a 1.7 million drop-off of foreign-born workers from March to July. And
that's a great number, by the way. That's a great number. Because it means we're putting Americans to work.
So that number isn't fake.
Yeah.
That number you like, you massive hack. I'm trying not to act bitter because I'm so angry about this. As people, as the Peppers would know, I've been talking about this. This is as my nightmare for a year. I've been fuming all week. So I'm trying to not get too passionate here. But honestly, stats makes me very angry when you fuck with them. All of Trump's buddies are out hawking the same stats. The same ones that are apparently fake, right? Around 1.7 million fewer jobs for foreign-born workers in 4 months. This is JD Vance pushing the same number on Twitter. This is Trump fangirl Batya Ungasator pushing the same stats on CNN.
So over the last 4 months, 1.8 million native-born Americans got a job, and 1.5 million foreign-born workers lost a job, and we know that 1 million of those, or somewhere around them at least, were illegal migrants who exited the workforce and self-deported. This is a huge, huge win for the president. This is exactly what an America First economy should look like.
The irony of all this, Dave, is that stat, the one they're clinging to, is the one stat that's probably fake. It's not maliciously fake. No one should be sacked because of this.
Yes.
But it's just a statistical fallacy. And let me explain. Back in 2024, before any of these people were pushing these talking points, the Department of Labor warned about this exact stat in the report. They noted about labor data that non-sampling error can occur for many reasons, including the inability or unwillingness of respondents to provide correct information. Dave, do you reckon there might be a reason for illegal immigrants to maybe not provide correct information right now?
Or a reason for employers not to say where their employees actually come from? Yes, I do.
There's a June 2025 report from the Center for Immigration Studies, who, of all people, they are a very right-wing organisation, okay? These guys are not big fans of immigration. And they said that given recent stepped-up enforcement efforts, it's possible that immigrants, especially illegal immigrants, have become more reluctant to respond to the CPS, or if they do respond, are less willing to indicate they're foreign-born. This could create the appearance of a decline when none has occurred. No kidding. But that's all theory.
Yes.
What's actually happening, Dave? Let's have a look. Between January and June 2025, the reported foreign-born population, not talking about jobs now, population, aged 16 and over, supposedly fell by 1.3 million. Maybe they all self-deported, like Batya Ungasagon said. Except, over that same period, native-born individuals mysteriously grew by 2.2 million. Isn't that interesting? I wonder where those 2.2 million people came from. Those 2.2 million extra native-born people who appeared out of nowhere, even though birth rates are going down at the moment. Where did these people come from? I wonder. Obviously, foreign-born people are saying they're native-born so they don't get deported. Obviously. And so there appears to be a highly suspicious massive drop in foreign-born workers. At exactly the same time, there's a highly suspicious massive increase in native-born workers. It's a bullshit stat. But sure, Trumpies, keep on citing it. By the way, how screwed up is someone suggesting that native-born people getting work is better than foreign-born people getting work? Just stop to think about that for a second. They're not saying illegal immigrants. They're saying American citizens who are born in a different country.
Yeah.
It's worse for them to have a job than native-born American citizens. They're cheering the idea of people who came to America when they were 5 years old and became a citizen, becoming unemployed. They're cheering for that. How screwed up are these people?
But even if we are thinking of non-native born people as illegal immigrants, so she was claiming that like 2/3 of them were illegal immigrants, who except the most hardcore committed Trump supporter is going to believe that, yes, like 1 million illegal immigrants left the tomato picking fields or left their job washing chicken guts off the floor of factories, and that all of a sudden all of these apple-cheeked, native-born white Americans just suddenly went, "Oh my God, look at these great jobs. We can go and work now. This is what we've been waiting for," but Biden wouldn't let us do it. But that is the scenario that they're presenting. We have put 1.7 million Americans to work because suddenly there were all these jobs freed up by illegal immigrants.
Unlikely. Back to what I was saying before, how Trump has actually made this worse. So many of Trump's policies have made the BLS's job harder. For instance, you talked about the declining response rates in the surveys. That's their number one problem.
Yep.
Like the low response rates. If they had a 100% response rate, they wouldn't have revisions. It'd be fine. There was a group who was trying to solve this problem. That group is the Federal Economic Statistics Advisory Committee, FESAC. For those who are dedicated listeners of the PEP Extra early in the year, you'll remember I mentioned this at the time and said, it's a bit nerdy, but, I care about this shit. They are a team of unpaid statistical experts formed in 1999 who were advising BLS methodology. And they were literally, Dave, literally working on strategies to increase survey response rates for the employers survey when they were disbanded by Howard Lutnick in February. Literally, that's what they were doing. Now, you might go, well, they're trying to save money. They were a voluntary organisation. It saved no money. The email announcing it said, quote, "The Secretary of Commerce has determined that the purposes for which FESAC was established has been fulfilled." Oh, has it? Say that to Trump. I'm guessing it was just an anti-academic expert.
I'm sure it was.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's anyway. Literally, they were trying to solve the problem when they were disbanded for no reason,
but
saving no money.
When those people had meetings, they might have been drinking free government water.
Maybe.
Using federal toilets.
Probably using cab charges.
These are... Oh, no way. These are all the things that Doge was dedicated to all the waste, to hunting down and throwing out.
Talking about which... across-the-board job cuts and buyouts from Doge led to 15 to 40% attrition rates across all statistical agencies. There was also a government-wide hiring freeze in place, so BLS couldn't replace any of the workers they lost. According to friends of the BLS, their funding's down 22% adjusted for inflation since 2010, although maybe that adjustment wasn't done correctly, lack of funding. This has apparently been a huge issue in the inflation reports in particular. to the point where they literally aren't even collecting prices anymore in Lincoln, Nebraska, Provo, Utah, and Buffalo, New York. They're just dropping cities out of their data collection now because they don't have the staff.
Yeah.
That's where they're at. In the rest of the country, the Bureau is apparently collecting just 15% less price data. Government agencies also tend to be late reporters, generally speaking, and this year they have a lot of unexpected cuts because of Doge, because of the Trump administration. So that means it's increasing the error rate in later responses. So that's another way that Trump is contributing to the problem. Also, the BLS's projections are being messed with because there's massive shifting population trends.
Yes.
Massive shifting population trends affects their seasonal projections and their maths. Trump's immigration policies are changing how many people are in the labour force, how many people are prepared to be official as illegal immigrants go into hiding. It changes the numbers.
Yeah.
There's more uncertainty, creates more error. These are all things that Trump has done to make their job harder, and then he sacked this woman who had nothing to do with it anyway. She's just a figurehead.
Yes.
It's so infuriating. So, Dave, my question to you to wrap up this section, unless you have other things to say, is has Trump buggered everything up now? Can we no longer trust the next month's employment stats?
Absolutely. I just wonder, what is the next person that he appoints going to do? My guess is they're not going to fabricate statistics in the way that he would probably like. There's just certain things they're not going to report on, or they're going to say there's a very wide confidence interval around this. They're going to have to find some way to placate him. The problem is that the actual qualified people who'd be available to do this is just not how they operate. This is not how they've been trained to do it. He's really going to have to go a long way down before he can find someone who is going to get him the numbers that he wants. I think that as far as this administration goes, you can't trust them at all. It's just a matter of how long is it going to take before they clean out everybody who actually can be trusted. Right, this is part of this process, and people are wondering about what the long-term effects of that are going to be. Like, how is this going to affect investors?
Yeah,
it's a very difficult question. One of the reasons why it's difficult is because there are a lot of big private entities in the US who have their own sources of data about things, which are not going to be as good as what the BLS provides to everybody for free. But nonetheless, what we are going to be seeing is people turning more and more to proprietary sources of data, which are a lot more expensive, but not as good in order to make decisions. That is going to be bad for those who can't afford it. So, yeah, the rich and the big, they're not going to be so affected by this. But there are a lot of smaller players who will be. Another thing that is worth keeping in mind is, because, I look at this and think there is no way I would ever lend the United States government money. Like, if this was a person, you would be, securing your wallet if you saw them coming.
Yes.
The minute that they started their pitch, you'd say, not today, sorry. Right? But this is not necessarily how big investors and big economic players think about things. The fact that China's GDP figures are not exactly reliable and have not been for years, that didn't deter large-scale investment.
That's a fair point.
In China. Unfortunately, the ability to do things like this is correlated with power. If you're powerful enough and you're a big enough economy, then people are just going to swallow it and kind of factor in the costs. Not everyone can get away with it, right? Argentina and Greece can't get away with routinely fabricating statistics. But yeah, I mean, China, at the very least, their GDP statistics are not particularly reliable.
No.
That does not deter investment in China. That might be the way that the US is headed, that certain statistics, certain official information that make the business environment a lot better, a lot more stable and a lot more predictable, that might go out the window. But nonetheless, the US is the world's biggest consumer market. I don't think, though, that it's going to spur the kind of investment in American manufacturing that Trump thinks is coming.
No.
Yeah. People are still going to want to sell things to the United States, but in terms of making things in the United States, that's where this is going to start to get a little bit difficult, because what people know they can rely on is the size of the American consumer market, just as in China, what they knew they could rely on was the size of the labour market and the kinds of subsidies that were going to companies. Right, so even though some things were untrustworthy, some things were relatively stable. Same as in the US. But what is stable and what is trustworthy is the size of that consumer market.
I 100% agree about private data sources. I think that people are definitely going to turn to private data sources to at least back up the public data sources as a point of comparison. I suspect people start citing the private data. Like the ADP, for instance, private payrolls ended up with an average of 36,000 jobs a month for the last 3 months. Which is pretty close to what the BLS figures were in the end. After their revisions. But people might just start citing both going forward. I personally don't think they're going to start just making up fake numbers. I don't think it's possible. Like, as in, when I say I don't think it's possible, I mean, it's possible to make up a fake number. But if you have 2,000 people who are all stats nerds who are involved in the process, how many whistleblowers are there? If anyone gets up to any funny business, they're going to get the whistle blown on them. I actually think the numbers that they put out are going to be reliable numbers.
But what numbers are they going to put out?
But here's the thing. But I've got two provisos on that. The first proviso is it doesn't matter whether they are reliable. It matters whether you trust them. And what Trump has guaranteed now is that people won't trust them. The next positive result, people go, oh, hang on, has Trump cooked the books here? Even though I think he can't cook the books. I think that people are going to suspect that he has. So he's just buggered up the entire system. Like, he's just... Statistics revolves around trust. Statistics are worth nothing if you don't trust them. That is the currency of statistics. And Trump has just devalued the currency of the government statistics. And there's no coming back from that. It's going to take years, if not decades, to come back from that. And that's really, really heartbreaking to me. But that's a first proviso. The second proviso is that I don't think there's any way that someone is going to diddle the numbers. But what they can diddle are the definitions. I spoke to Betsy Stevenson about this on Planet America. Justin Wolfers' wife, who I shouldn't say that. She's
former member of Obama's National Economic Council.
It's the other way around. Justin Wolfers is hanging off her.
Also at the University of Michigan.
She's the power element of the couple. And this is the very thing that she said. And we talked off air about it later on because we're both economics nerds. And she talked at length about this to me, about how worried she is about them starting to come up with different definitions to suit them. And she came up with a bunch just off the top of her own head. She said, well, they could do this, they could do that, they could do that. And all of these things would give Trump better results. They're all accurate. But they are all justifiable in their own way. Like, none of them are shockingly unjustifiable, but they would be employed solely to make him look better. And that's the problem. And so that is what I'm most concerned about. Starting a statistics nerd to keep their job, coming up with ways of fooling around the definitions to tweak the numbers. That's what I'm most concerned about. And that is, I think, I'm not sure it will happen. I'm not sure it won't happen. I'm just saying it's now possible. And that's something we need to be worried about. For what it's worth, Jason Furman says he thinks that they won't be able to fake the data given the procedures, but he acknowledges there's a risk. There's now a risk. There wasn't a risk before. Now there's a risk. Thank you, Trump. You have really, really buggered this up. So anyway, that's my take on all this. You got anything else on that?
Final historical note is that Nixon wanted to do this, but didn't.
Well,
there you go.
Making history.
Dave,
keep on going. I'll interrupt you less this time because I'm less passionate about it, surprisingly. Gaza. I'm passionate about Gaza, but not like I am about economic statistics.
Okay. So there has been a distinct shift, I would say, in the kind of language that people are using around Gaza, and for good reason. And before I get into the specifics of it, I think that the barometer of that is Trump actually saying that there was starvation going on and you can't fake it.
Mr. President, Prime Minister Netanyahu said there's no starvation in Gaza. Do you agree with that assessment?
I don't know. I mean, based on television, I would say not particularly, because those children look very hungry. But
the starvation in Gaza has been, I think, the single biggest factor in shifting opinion about what is actually going on there, and shifting opinion against Israel among people who were previously either pro-Israel or not particularly committed either way. The background to the starvation is, in the middle of last year, the Knesset started formulating laws that would ban the UN Relief and Works Association for Palestinians from Israeli territory. So the UNRWA, UNRWA.
Yeah.
Yes. So they have been, they're one of the UN's oldest agencies. They have been delivering food aid to Palestinians for a very long time.
Yes.
So UNRWA has been accused of effectively facilitating Hamas.
Yeah.
Because there's this accusation that keeps coming from Netanyahu and other members of the Israeli government that Hamas is stealing most or all of the UNRWA food supplies.
Well, they sacked 9 people last year who've been suspected of being involved in October 7.
Right.
Yeah, but that's 9.
Yes.
It's a pretty big organisation.
Yeah, that's a huge.
But
Yes.
also, yes.
It's a huge organisation.
They're suggesting they're in league with Hamas. And,
Yes, yeah. So this is the pretext. And then in January last year, that law was actually passed banning UNRWA from Israeli territory. Now, UNRWA was by far the most effective organisation at delivering aid to Palestinians, albeit that's pretty difficult to do when there's a blockade on food trucks, even getting there in the first place. That blockade has become almost total since March of this year.
I was just going to say that it was literally total from March to May.
Yep.
Since May, they've theoretically lifted it, but they've placed a bunch of restrictions on UN aid.
Yes.
Which makes it much, much harder for UN aid to exist than it used to. Like now the restrictions they're things like you need to tell us the names and history of every Palestinian who works for you.
Yep.
They got to jump through a bunch of hoops.
Yes.
And it basically makes it not impossible,
yep.
but much harder than it used to be.
Yes.
Right, yeah.
Okay, so just to recap then, the Israeli government has basically thrown out the biggest, most experienced, most important organisation that delivers aid.
Yep.
And they have stopped or really substantially restricted the most effective method of getting aid, which is through trucks.
Yes.
Okay, these things are contributing to starvation. The New York Times reported that, according to their sources within the Israeli government, there have been investigations done that have found no systematic Hamas theft from UNRWA. There have been Hamas theft from other smaller organisations that don't actually have the personnel on the ground to be able to deal with that, but not UNRWA. This is backed by a finding that came from an investigation from USAID that had been going on since June that also found that there was no systematic Hamas theft from UNRWA.
That doesn't mean there's never theft, but the idea that they're in league and partnering up like Israel was suggesting, no evidence for that.
Yeah, that's right. So this whole pretext for the starvation is based on nothing. This is the point that I want to emphasize.
Yeah.
When the New York Times contacted the Israeli military about this, they said in vague terms that Hamas had been able to exploit the food aid process to its benefit, but they did not actually deny the finding that there hasn't been systematic Hamas theft from food aid.
And they also say it was very effective as well.
Yes.
As in effectively feeding people.
Yes. Yeah. So that story is in the homework.
Yeah.
Right. So I just want to say from the outset that the whole political pretext for the factors that are involved in starvation are based on nothing.
Yep.
Yeah. So what you have in terms of food aid now is you've got a lot of smaller organisations that can't deal with Hamas, that are very vulnerable to that kind of predation.
Yep.
And you've got the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation.
And by the way, I just want to add in as well,
Yep.
one of those conditions that
Yes.
Israel has added is that they reserve the right to ban any group who has any employees that have questioned Israel's existence as a Jewish democratic state. Now, in that part of the world,
Yep.
that's a lot of people.
That is a lot of people.
Yeah. So
Yes.
it really restricts any non-GHF organisations. So now you can talk about GHF.
Yes. So if you've never heard of Gaza Humanitarian Foundation before, that's because it only came into existence this year. So it was February this year that it came into existence, and May that it started to work in food aid in Gaza. Now, you might look at Gaza Humanitarian Foundation and think, well, that sounds like an organisation that is there to help people. This is an organisation that is entirely American and Israeli backed. The head of it is appointed by Trump. The current head of it is Johnny Moore. More about him in a second. But the original head of it stepped down because of his concerns about the lack of autonomy of the organisation. Boston Consulting Group was involved initially. They also withdrew. It's not clear why, but I would say probably because of fears of reputational damage. So this is an entirely US and Israeli-backed organisation. The way that they deliver food is by forcing people to go, sometimes very long distances, to places that have been described by observers as death traps. They are inaccessible to a lot of people, and they are very, very heavily guarded by a lot of very, very skittish soldiers. So you've probably heard a lot about reports of people being fired upon at these food collection sites. So by one estimate, 859 people have been killed while they've been going to collect food aid from the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation and have been fired on by Israeli troops. I've seen higher estimates than that as well.
I was going to say, you've been generous. I've seen estimates over 1,300.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, but going with the conservative estimate that no one even disputes.
Yeah.
So just to digest that, people going to collect food aid getting shot as a result because soldiers regard them as some kind of threat.
And just to back over what Dave said, there are only 4 main aid distribution centres in the country.
Yep.
As opposed to the 400 that the UN ran.
Yes.
So there's 1/100th of them. So it's just the fewer places, the more walking people have to do.
Yes.
Often barefoot.
Yeah.
On roads that have been damaged and destroyed in a war zone.
Yes.
Yeah. Also, they're apparently delivering about 3% of the aid that's required as well.
That is right.
Yeah. So
yes.
It's a very small number.
And when you look at the numbers, so Trump the other day in an interview said that the United States had given $60 million in food aid to the Palestinians and no one else had given anything. Not the Europeans, not anybody else.
He wanted to be thanked.
He wanted to be thanked, and nobody said thank you. Just to break this down a little bit, to start with, you're aware of the kind of numbers that we talk about all the time on PEP, and you would recognise that 60 million is a very small number compared to the kinds of numbers that we talk about. $60 million is not enough to buy most of the weapons that are being used in this conflict. Right, the kinds of weapons that the United States is selling to Israel, that's more than $60 million a pop. Okay. Second, it turns out that it wasn't $60 million. It was $30 million had been set aside, of which $3 million had actually been delivered.
Right. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. $3 million. There are neighborhoods in the United States where the median house price is $3 million. Albeit they're expensive ones. But yeah, $3 million, that's like one house in San Francisco.
So they need more food.
Yes.
And by the way, it's not just more food. The GHF only gives food.
Yes.
The UN also gave medicine.
Yep.
It gave sanitary products. It gave other things, whereas GHF only gives food, and they give them in these heavy boxes. Like if you're a pregnant woman, you're going to walk 5 miles through a war zone to pick up a 22-kilo box, and it's just not practical.
No, it's not practical at all. Now, there was understandable international outrage, including even alluded to by Trump, about the obvious starvation that is taking place. The pictures are there. The statistics are there about the number of people actually starving to death every day. The video footage is there of completely desperate people at these food aid sites with no guarantee that they're going to get food, but with a reasonable chance that they're going to get shot. And due to the level of public outrage about this, there was another delivery mechanism introduced, which was airdrops.
Yes.
Okay. Just to give you an idea of what it's like to be in a place where an airdrop happens, I'm going to read from an Al Jazeera journalist who lives in Gaza. Okay? So just to read the first couple of paragraphs of this story. Last week, I saw a dropping from the sky near my central Gaza neighborhood of Az-Zawaja. Neither I nor any of my neighbors had the courage to chase after it because we knew that the moment it hit the ground, a battle would erupt. If the aid survived the air, it wouldn't survive the looters. It is almost always the same scene. Gunfire breaks out the second the plane drops the boxes. Armed gangs are already waiting on the ground, ready to take the goods by force. Whoever gets there first, whoever shoots first, also walks away with the food. It is never those who need it the most. Later, we would see those same aid boxes in the market in Deir el-Balah, their contents up for sale at exorbitant prices. Recently, my little brother was craving a biscuit. I saw biscuits from an aid package at the market and asked for the price. It was 20 shekels, which is $5 for a biscuit, something we could not afford. I apologize to everyone for my butchering of Arabic pronunciation, but that's what it's like to be in an area with food drops. And that, by the way, is what it has always been like when aid is dropped from the air. It becomes a violent contest over who is going to get it because there is nobody to actually supervise the distribution of it. This is a recipe for armed gangs stealing things and doing black market profiteering.
This is the problem with the GHF.
Yes.
If they're not giving enough food
No.
and they're making it hard for you to get that food, it makes people that much more desperate for the other methods. Because it's not just the airdrops. There's also the UN, like I said, they can't do the old system. They're trying to do a new system at the moment. They're trying to truck in more food.
Yes.
The trucks just keep on getting hijacked.
Yes.
Both by peaceful people who are just hungry and desperate.
Yes, yeah.
And by armed thugs who are trying to steal it and then sell it.
Yes.
Right. The stat I saw was since May, I think it was since May 19, 89% of UN trucks have not reached their destination.
Yeah.
And that's a direct result of the GHF not working.
Yes.
If it was working, then there wouldn't be such demand for these things, and they'd be able to get further.
So all the claims they're making about UNRWA being looted, everything that the US and Israel did in response to that has led to the almost 100% looting of food aid supplies, which is another thing that is leading to mass starvation.
Oh, by the way, I should add as well that 68% of the roads in Gaza have been destroyed by the war, which means there's only one or two paths the trucks can go down. So the looters just sitting there waiting for them. They don't even need to guess where they're going to be.
Yes.
So, which makes it harder as well. I've got that clip about the GHF. Should I play that now?
Yes. Yep.
Okay, yeah. This is a great clip. Now, look, this goes for 4 minutes, but I know it's a long haul, but I think this is worth it because this is a US Army veteran, a Green Beret named Anthony Aguilar, who was working with the GHF, and this is what he has to say about it all. It's really hard to get independent testimony during this war, and part of the problem is Israel have stopped journalists getting in.
Yes.
Right? And that's very annoying because they say things like, for instance, we should have said this before. Israel completely denies that any any Israeli soldiers have shot anyone at the GHF sites, right?
Yep.
They're saying that's just not happening. It's just a fiction. You go, okay, fine. I'd love to be able to verify that, but there are no independent people there to verify because you won't let them in. Now, here is an example of an independent person. He actually worked with GHF. He's certainly not biased against them. And this is his testimony of what it was like to work at GHF and some stories. So I would recommend not fast forwarding this, please. Have a listen. I think you'll think it's worth it.
No one in Gaza City, in Jabalia, where right now I think it is, everybody can agree, is the most vulnerable population going into starvation and famine. There are no distribution sites from GHF north of the Netzarim corridor at all. They're all south of the Netzarim corridor. No one from Gaza City or north of the Netzarim corridor can go south of the Netzarim corridor. So the entire vulnerable population that the world has pulled the alarm on, that is in the time of crisis and on the verge of famine, can't get to any of the aid. Can't even get to it. And we're not taking it to them. So in order to reach each of these sites, throughout all of the rest of Gaza, central to South Gaza, there are only 4 sites, and 3 of them are all the way in the south, located right in the middle of the IDF's Operation Gideon's Chariots, which is an offensive operation. Not security, not defense, but an offensive war that these civilians have to walk through, and they get shot at. They get shot at by the IDF, and unfortunately, they get shot at by American contractors on the ground.
And you've witnessed this directly.
I have witnessed it. I would, one of the photos that I took, sir, was this photo here. This young boy, his name is Amir. I know that because he and I talked. I took this photo. This is on, this hurts, I get a little emotional with this because this is on Secure Distribution Site 1 on the 27th of May. The second day we had done distribution. At this point, the second in charge of the entire contract resigned in protest based on how distribution went on the 26th of May on day 1. He notified the leadership. He said, I can't be a part of this anymore. We continued. This young man on this site, as you can see, he doesn't have a box. He's carrying things that he found on the ground. Because on the sites, it became a free-for-all. It became a survival of the fittest. The Gaza Olympics. Yeah. Hunger Games. Dystopian to the 10th degree. It's horrible. There was no box for this young man, so he picked up some things that he found on the ground, and he was so thankful for even that, and he walked up to me, and he extended his hand, and I beckoned for him to come forward, and he grabbed my hand, and he kissed my hand, and he said, Shukran, Shukran. And he was sincere. He was crying. He walked 8 kilometers to get there. No shoes.
Yep.
Probably hasn't eaten in days. So for anybody that says that the people of Gaza are not starving, I beg to differ. I've seen different. This young man, then he held my hand and he kissed it, and I kneeled down to look at him in the face so I can let him know that, people care. You're not alone. People care. And he set down his bags and he put his hands on my face and he kissed me. And he looked at me and he said, Shukran. And I was like, you're welcome. And he says, thank you. And he picked up his bags and he went back to join this group. And this was the last remaining group of people on the site that were picking up remnants of aid. And he left through the exit of site number 1. The exit of site number 1 goes north to the Marag corridor, which is a combat area, a fighting area.
Yeah.
The IDF opened up with machine gun fire into the crowd to get them to leave faster, to get them to hurry. Shooting at their feet, shooting over their heads, shooting into the berm. There's video of this. It's been verified. That's the first time I had experienced such use of force against, so I didn't know what was going on because he had walked through the berm and I heard the shooting. So I ran up to the berm to look, and there were dead Palestinians. He was one of them.
Oh my God.
That whole interview, by the way, goes for 27 minutes. I'll link it in the homework. Definitely worth it. It's good to get actual testimony, like that is not from one side or the other. And this is a great example. So please listen. Dave.
Yeah. So when you hear the words Gaza Humanitarian Foundation, that is a grotesque misrepresentation of what they're actually doing. The Gaza Humanitarian Foundation, regardless of the motives of the people who work there, what it has actually done is to facilitate starvation. Okay, under the guise of delivering food aid more effectively than UNRWA. Instead, it has dramatically reduced the delivery of food aid. Looking at who's involved in the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation, so the head of it now is Johnny Moore. Johnny Moore is an American. He was on Trump's Evangelical Advisory Council in 2017. He got his start as an assistant to Jerry Falwell at Liberty University. He's been involved in an array of evangelical humanitarian causes over the years. He is not actually your kind of full-blown, charismatic, prophetic Trump supporter. He's a more sort of traditional evangelical who you might have seen being more at home in the Bush administration, actually. Like, for example, he was pro-DACA. So he was generally committed to humanitarian causes, but that is not going to make him an effective deliverer of food aid in place of the organisation that was actually set up decades ago to deliver food aid. He's basically set himself up as an avid defender / imitator of Mike Huckabee. He has also taken many, many trips to Israel, which he brags about. Everything that Mike Huckabee says, he says is 100% correct.
Okay.
And, you know, if you look him up, you'll see, like, the first thing that's going to come up are videos of him claiming that everything that UNRWA was delivering was under the control of Hamas. Right. So he is doing that propaganda as well. So, you know, however genuinely humanitarian his intentions may be, the fact is, functionally, what the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation is doing is actually reducing the effectiveness of food aid and facilitating starvation.
By the way, there's a simple illustration of this. Just look at the food aid before the blockade, that's the grey, and after. Look at the food aid now compared to before. That tells you all you need to know. There is not enough food. Not even close.
Yep. This is facilitating starvation, and it's impossible to ignore. I think there is a way that for some people looking at this, the starvation is even worse than the violence. Because looking at the violence that's been taking place ever since the original Hamas attack, I think that many or most people have seen this as a lot of the things that the Israeli military did were bad, but nonetheless, it was part of a conflict. That, you know, Hamas was firing back, that there were hostages they were trying to rescue, and that this is part of an armed conflict that has been going on for a very long time. So even though for a long time now there have been all of these debates about Israel, is Israel committing genocide, is Israel committing crimes against humanity, that doesn't quite move people in the same way that starvation does. Because what you see here is people, many of them children, who they're not unfortunate collateral damage. They're not being killed in an armed conflict where there are two sides. These are just people who are being starved to death. These are people who can't leave. These are people who their ability to produce food has been completely taken away from them. They're not allowed to fish. That's been banned by Israel. They are completely dependent on food being imported.
When you say not allowed to fish, they couldn't fish if they wanted to.
Probably
the water's polluted at the moment.
Yes,
It's just got dust and cinder blocks everywhere.
Yes.
Yeah, like there's literally no means of them getting food outside aid.
Yeah.
That is completely buggered up now.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And people could also look at the military response in Gaza and say that was a response to a horrific act of violence. it is not like the Gazans are starving the Israeli military, right? There's no kind of two sides to this. This is just starvation.
You're totally right about it capturing people's attention. I've got a graph of the percentage of online news articles mentioning Gaza and starvation or famine as a percentage of all online news articles. I mean, have a look at that. It's just gone through the roof in the last. That's more than double than it's been in the last 12 months. Just in the last few weeks.
Now, don't get me wrong. Starvation at this point has not killed anywhere near as many people as the violence has. The numbers of people who have died of malnutrition are still in the hundreds at this point, whereas the number of people who have died in the violence is, one estimate is 60,000. But given the kinds of conditions that people in Gaza are in at the moment, with all of the estimates of the number of people who haven't eaten for a certain number of days, the estimates of just the complete inadequacy of the calories that are being available, it would not be surprising, horrifically, if thousands of people starve to death or die of malnutrition-related causes.
That is definitely coming. Of the 74 malnutrition-related deaths in Gaza in 2025, 63 in July.
Yeah.
Including 24 children under 5. So that can increase fast. Because that's the other thing. Yes, there's been people who have been short of food for a while in Gaza. That's not new.
No.
What's over when that first started, when the war first started and people might have been short of food, they had storage. They were starting from a position of health.
Yes.
Now they're starting from a position of being just above starvation level with no storage and no ability to there's no room for error anymore. Every single day they're not eating, they're a lot closer to starvation. And so, so that number can go up fast.
Yes. Now, to get back to the American element of it, although obviously the American element is all the way through this because Gaza Humanitarian Foundation is effectively an American organisation.
Yeah.
In other words, this is direct American culpability in this. Even more direct, I would say, than selling weapons to Israel. There's been a huge amount of debate over the last couple of weeks about whether the US selling defensive weapons to Israel contributes to the deaths of Palestinians. There's been an interesting split there because AOC has argued that the US should actually be selling defensive weapons to, or at least she's not going to vote to ban it. But here you have an American organisation that is directly facilitating starvation. Now, when Trump said, definitely breaking from Netanyahu, that there is starvation, because Netanyahu's line has been, no, there is no starvation.
Yeah.
Look at these pictures that come from somewhere of a market full of fruit and vegetables. When Trump is calling bullshit on that, right, you know that something has shifted. But that doesn't necessarily mean that US policy has shifted. That just means that Trump saw something on TV and felt vaguely bad about it. Because US policy has not shifted at all. As far as I can see, the only thing that has changed is that now these airdrops are taking place. So airdrops are not the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation. That's mainly other Middle Eastern air forces that are taking part in that.
And it's a very tiny amount.
Yes.
Of aid. It's like it's basically scratching the surface.
Yes.
By the way, also for those who are wondering, well, how do you know Netanyahu's not right? There's a really easy way to prove that starvation exists, other than just the death figures.
Yes.
Is what's the price of a sack of flour in the Gaza market at the moment? I'll tell you what it is. It's $500.
Yeah.
People aren't paying $500 for a sack of flour unless there is no food.
Yes.
Pretty simple.
Yeah. Now, Hamas has used the starvation for its own purposes, surprisingly enough. So Hamas released a couple of pretty horrific videos showing, we're not going to show them, but showing Israeli hostages emaciated, obviously starving, pleading for food, one saying that he's been made to dig his own grave. And the clear message that was being sent by Hamas is, you starve us, you're starving your own hostages. There was a very... it's absolutely vile, deplorable tactics, but there was a very clear political purpose behind it. That is, they know that there's a big protest movement in Israel to end the war, bring the hostages home. That's who they were directly appealing to with that. This is something that could only happen because of the starvation that is being facilitated by this shift to the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation. So this is not even helping Israel, it's not even helping Israel militarily in any way. It's not helping its supposed war purposes of getting the hostages back.
Which will be news to National Security Minister Ben Gvir, who tweeted out a few months back, 1, factually, there is no hunger in Gaza. 2, if they were hungry, they would have already returned the hostages home. 3, I'm in favour of starving Hamas in Gaza.
Yep.
That's what we're dealing with there.
Yes.
Yeah.
We're talking about indifference on the part of some parts of the Israeli government to what is going on. Also, what is now being suggested by Netanyahu is basically complete capitulation to the most extreme right elements of his government and proceeding with a plan to reoccupy Gaza with what would ultimately be a plan to establish Israeli settlements there. There were Israeli settlements in Gaza prior to, I think it was 2000. Israel withdrew from those.
That's right, Sharon.
Under Ariel Sharon. Yeah. At the time, there was speculation that the reason why was because that would then make it easier to conduct military offensives against Gaza. But there's certainly always been an element of the Israeli right that wants to reoccupy Gaza. And Netanyahu, in his never-ending quest to hold his government together, looks like that's where he might have to go. The response of some countries to this, including some traditional allies of Israel, has been to move towards recognising Palestinian statehood.
Just before we go there, let me just inject one little thing, which is Netanyahu's plan there or his plan to reoccupy Gaza, or to annex it, is opposed by the IDF chief of staff and the Mossad chief as well.
Yes.
Both of them are completely opposed to it, which is the only thing that's holding him up at the moment, essentially, because he's got no one to do it for him.
Yes.
He
did suggest that the IDF chief should resign if he wasn't prepared to. If he wasn't prepared to do it, but you can see why they'd be opposed to it.
Of course, and the Commanders for Israel Security, which is a group of 600 retired Israeli security officials, not very left-wing group, I might add. Sent an open letter to Donald Trump asking him to pressure Netanyahu to put an end to the war. Here's a quote from it. "It's our professional judgment that Hamas no longer poses a strategic threat to Israel. Your credibility with the vast majority of Israelis augments your ability to steer Prime Minister Netanyahu and his government in the right direction, end the war, return the hostages, stop the suffering."
He doesn't seem interested in doing that so far.
No, he doesn't.
No.
Go on.
So the response from a lot of countries has been to make moves towards recognising Palestinian statehood. So I think both Britain and Canada, they suggested that they would unless the war ended.
Yep. France is on board as well.
Yes.
Yeah. They've got conditions, just to be clear.
Yeah.
Like I'm talking UK and Canada here.
Yep.
They both have said that Hamas can't be part of the government. There needs to be a democratic election.
Yes.
They have to disarm. There's a bunch of conditions. It's not just. It's not just because they've been portrayed by some Americans.
Yes.
And Israelis as being
rewarding Hamas.
Exactly. Yes, but rewarding Hamas, and they say no, Hamas isn't part of this.
Yeah.
Hamas is out of the picture.
Yeah.
It has to be out of the picture, but once they are out of the picture, we are recognising Palestine as a separate country. Yes.
On an interesting side note, the Arab League, the 22 members of the Arab League signed off on a statement calling for Hamas to disarm.
They did.
Yes. None of them are big fans of Hamas at all. I think it's unlikely that Hamas is going to do that.
That includes Qatar.
Yeah.
Which is, that's the closest thing Hamas has had to an ally in the region for a little while.
Yes.
Yeah.
I doubt that Hamas is just going to do that. But anyway, that's the pressure coming on Hamas from the Arab world. I did see an op-ed by a former Egyptian ambassador to the United States suggesting this Egyptian solution to the problem, which is that Gaza gets put under Egyptian trusteeship
Okay.
He said Egypt is the only entity with both the power and the credibility to be able to do it.
6 months ago, I thought Egypt didn't want the Palestinians.
Well, no, that's not. No, this would be part of a plan for them not to go to Egypt.
Oh, I see. Egypt to take over Gaza.
Egypt to take over
I see. Okay.
Gaza, to become the trustee.
Yeah, I see.
Of Gaza. Once again, I doubt that would. It's an interesting idea, but I doubt that is going to fly with Hamas. But Trump's response to these calls for statehood was to threaten Canada in trade negotiations.
There is that as well. This is the clip of his first reaction.
Yep.
Is there any use at all in pressuring Israel now to come to some sort of longer-term solution?
Well, you could make the case that you're rewarding people, that, you're rewarding Hamas if you do that. And I don't think they should be rewarded. So I'm not in that camp, to be honest. We'll let you know where we are, but I am not in that camp.
Mr. President,
because if you do that, you really are rewarding Hamas. And I'm not about to do that.
And then after that, he then said, "Oh, Canada, it's going to be so hard to negotiate with you now and trade." It's just
yes,
Trump.
So that is how Trump is responding to these things, which makes me think I don't think that he is going to get in Netanyahu's way. I mean, maybe he will. There have been times in the past where he has pushed back on Netanyahu.
There've been mind reading pieces in the paper suggesting that he is going to take over aid completely while Netanyahu takes over the country completely. I don't know.
Yeah, which could only make both things worse. Yeah, I think. So anyway, that is the situation now. So I say some pretty important discourse shifts worldwide.
Yeah,
I would say, but not really from Trump.
Not from Trump, although. Look, some Republicans.
Yeah.
I mean, America as a whole has definitely moved a lot.
Absolutely, yeah.
Like you got to the point in Gallup, you got 32% of Americans support Israel actions in Gaza, which is low.
Yeah.
Independents, 25% support Israel's actions. Democrats are 8%. That's not a surprise. Yes. If you split by age, 49% of 55 pluses support the campaign in Gaza to 9% of 18 to 34s.
Yeah.
So that's all Gallup.
Yes.
Even Marjorie Taylor Greene is calling it a genocide now.
Yeah.
She tweeted out that it was like she tweeted out it was in response to Randy Fine, who is the worst person in Congress.
Absolutely.
Randy Fine tweeted out, "Release the hostages, until then starve away. This is all a lie anyway. It amazes me that the media continues to regurgitate Muslim terror propaganda." And Marjorie Taylor Greene responded to him with, "I can only imagine how Florida's 6th District feels now their representative that they were told to vote for openly calls for starving innocent people and children. It's the most truthful and easiest thing to say. The October 7th in Israel was horrific and all the hostages must be returned. But so is the genocide, humanitarian crisis and starvation happening in Gaza. But a Jewish US representative calling for the continued starvation of innocent people and children is disgraceful. His awful statement will actually cause more anti-Semitism." What's happening to her?
Yeah, I think what's most significant about that is that you can probably assume there's quite a bit of right-wing opinion that is aligned with that, even if it's a bit quiet at the moment. And I mean, that could be the biggest threat to Israel ultimately, actually losing American support. I don't see it happening immediately, but this has been, I would say, the most significant blow to Israel's esteem in the eyes of Americans, probably since the 1967 war.
It's been huge.
Yes.
It has been absolutely huge.
Yeah. Because it's not just the left.
No.
Yeah.
No, definitely not. This actually leads us to a correspondence from Tom, which I'll throw to you, Dave.
Yep.
Hey, Chaz, as you have an Is It Fascism segment, can we also have an Is It Genocide section at some point? I would like to hear your and Dr. Dave's opinion on Gaza. Well, we've been giving our opinion on Gaza, I think, pretty clearly.
Yep.
But would you like to answer that question? Is it genocide?
Yes, I would like to answer that by saying, because of the fact that genocide has really specific both legal definitions and legal connotations, right? There are major connotations to calling something genocide. And because there is a court currently considering this, I'm going to say the same thing that Ben Saul said in the conversation today, which is I'm not going to make that judgment without looking at the kind of evidence that is going to be presented. But to note that the ICC said that it was plausible that genocide had been committed. That was part of a piece done with four other genocide scholars. 3 of them said, in their opinion, the actions of the Israeli military have already surpassed the bar for genocide. One of the most interesting articles was from my University of Sydney colleague, A.L. Mayros. Sorry for butchering the pronunciation of his name. And it was a very, very thoughtful piece about the sort of what's required to establish genocide. And his view is, certainly in the last few months, that it has gone to that threshold. But he was saying early on, claims of genocide might have been counterproductive because they were pointed at as examples of overreach and because they produce this kind of siege mentality. But now he says they're actually important because of the way that they're mobilizing global public opinion. So, look, it's a very complicated question, and I'm not prepared to make pronouncements on is it genocide or not. I would also say something doesn't need to be genocide for it to be extremely bad.
Yeah.
And I think that's what the focus should be on. The debate about is it genocide or not, I think it has the potential to do more harm than good because it just degenerates into a bad faith debate about overreach.
Yeah.
And that ends up taking up all the time, like, this is just a libel, where it takes the attention off just the bad facts of what is actually happening.
Yeah, look, I mean, you're obviously wandering into the area I spent a lot of time in the last time we talked about this about 12 months ago.
Yeah.
And you might recall my concern about the label before was that it's very hard to prove government policies intentionally trying to starve people, which is the kind of definition you need.
Yes.
Especially when Israel was and continues to provide assistance for people.
Yep.
This is how Tom Cotton recently put it.
Since Hamas started this war with its brutal atrocities, Israel has helped bring into Gaza approximately 96,000 trucks containing nearly 1.5 million tons of food, 46,000 tons of medical supplies, 60,000 tons of water, and around 170,000 tons of shelter equipment. Put simply, children in Gaza aren't going hungry because of lack of supplies from Israel. They're suffering because Hamas uses food and humanitarian aid as a weapon to stay in power.
My view was always that Israel was committing war crimes.
Yes.
But I hadn't seen enough proof of genocide early on to label it that way. I think what your answer just now is very wise, and I wouldn't like to step on that, because I think it's pretty good. I just don't want to be a coward and just hiding. Like I've got to say something here.
Yeah.
I would say that I haven't done the research, because you're right, it's very technical, this question. I haven't done the research to bring you a very detailed legal analysis of this. But I personally find it difficult to imagine when there's a strategy of blocking all food entering Gaza that doesn't satisfy the intentionality element.
Yeah.
Right there. Especially when they have no means of creating their own food at the time.
And especially when the pretext for doing it has been shown to be false.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so I would not be I don't want to issue statements when I haven't done the work, but I find it difficult to believe that you couldn't make the case for genocide after the last 3 months.
Yeah.
I feel up to the last 3 months I could see the case against.
Yeah.
I'm struggling to see the case against at this point.
Which I think is how a lot of the world feels.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, but I mean, I do agree with you completely, as I have all along, that focusing on the specific legal label for human rights abuses is a lot less important than the human rights abuses themselves.
Yep.
And so I think that's actually the most useful thing we can do to shine light on the human rights abuses, which I hope we have done in the last half an hour or so. Let's start gerrymandering.
Okay.
Very, very quick stats nugget.
Stats Nugget.
This is a kind of a concession type stats nugget.
Concession speech.
Yeah, because look, another thing last year I did a little bit of downplaying on, although for different reasons, was Project 2025.
Okay, yeah.
Like and I never said my line was never Project 20. Like they're not going to do anything from Project 2025. My line was always Project 2025 is a classic Republican wish list.
Yes, it is.
Like
it was.
Everything there is things we've seen before
Yes.
and things we'll see again.
Yep.
And yeah, Trump's going to do some of that. But if you want to know exactly, he's not going to do all of it. And if you want to know exactly what he's going to do, look at his actual 20-point plan. It overlaps a lot with Project 2025. And that's probably what he's going to do.
Yes.
And he's certainly gone down that 20-point plan list. But I also want to concede that there is a Project 2025 tracker out there.
Yep.
Which is, and we can even link it in the homework if I can find the link. And 6 months into Trump's administration, the Project 2025 tracker says that Project 2025 is currently 47% complete. There are 115 complete proposals out of 317 so far, and there are another 64 proposals that are currently considered in progress by the Project 2025 tracker. We had a lot of interest in this question over the last few months, so I just thought that's an interesting stat.
Yeah.
I'll bring that to you guys.
Okay.
I assume you don't have anything to add to that?
No.
Okay, let's talk gerrymandering. Now, I did talk about this on Planet America today, but I'm going to go into much more detail now. And I'm sure Dave will have something to say before he leaves. Let's start with the background quickly. Blatant gerrymanders, that is the drawing of electoral boundaries to favour your political party, they used to be illegal. In reality, gerrymandering has been around since the Founding Fathers, but there was theoretically a limit until recently. To be clear, we're talking about states drawing boundaries for houses here.
Yep.
For the House, House seats. Senate seats are obviously not gerrymandered because their boundaries are state lines.
Apart from, you could say, American geography produces an enormous gerrymander, given that California is 79 times the size of Wyoming.
Yeah.
Same number of senators.
That is true. That is absolutely true. And actually, that's not geography's fault. That's the fault of the Republican presidents in the late 19th century who kept on subdividing empty land into new states.
There's like 5 silver miners in this state. They're all going to vote Republican.
Yes, but anyway. In Davis versus Bandama, 1986, the Supreme Court held if maps become egregiously partisan, that would violate the constitutional guarantee that all voters should have an equal say in elections. That's the one person, one vote principle. The problem was who decides what's egregiously partisan and on what basis do they decide that? Now, there's a whole area of academic expertise that's popped up. I spoke to one of those people on Planet America today, Professor Nick Stephanopoulos.
Yes.
Yeah, he was good.
I'm the godfather to his child.
I didn't know that.
Yes.
I should have told them about you.
Yes.
How about that?
Yeah.
Anyway, throughout the 2010s, they used to. And I was so proud in an interview. It was so easy in hindsight.
You should have asked me.
I know. Throughout the 2010s, they used computer modelling to start rating electoral maps in terms of the efficiency gap, how many votes were wasted by a certain electoral map.
Yes.
And courts were happy to defer to experts on that kind of stuff.
By the way, if you want to know what these maps look like, just Google bug splatter map.
Oh, cool.
So some of the principles of drawing electoral boundaries is that they're supposed to be compact and contiguous, and they're supposed to reflect natural community boundaries. So when you draw, for example, an electoral district in North Carolina, where you manage to link up all the university towns in the state through this long sort of snaking thing that basically follows the highway, that does not follow those principles. So I was MC at Nick's wedding in Chicago 10 years ago. And he and his wife, Ruth Greenwood, who's also a major election law expert, they had a wedding cake, which I think it was that map on it. I've got a photo. I've got a photo of it. So they are really committed to this stuff.
Awesome. Well, according to Nick, Professor Nick.
Yes.
he reckoned that in Texas, they don't even need to be contiguous.
No.
Isn't that amazing? They could just be dots. They could just circle Republican houses if they wanted to.
Yes.
Anyway.
By the way, this guy is a Harvard law professor.
Yes.
Okay, I just want to,
he's not like Dr. Nick.
He's not some random friend of mine. Yeah, he's a Harvard law professor.
He argued in front of the Supreme Court
He did.
in the case which I'm just about to tell you about.
Yes.
Like the courts threw out a bunch of these maps, these North Carolina maps that Dave just described in the 2010s, using the efficiency gap they just described. Wisconsin, they threw out maps. And then this case in 2019 that Professor Nick was part of, called the Rucho versus Common Cause case. And that was when they decided that actually they said there's no standard at all, and it's too hard for courts to work that out. Even though Professor Nick was saying, I've got a standard, here's a standard. And
there's now no standard at all is America's new motto.
And so they bailed federal courts completely out of the gerrymandering judging process, and they took another step in 2024 with Alexander versus NAACP. The court held, quote, as far as the federal constitution is concerned, a legislature may pursue partisan ends when it engages in redistricting. So then it became a free-for-all. And at that point, states stopped even pretending they weren't gerrymandering for partisan purposes. In fact, they defend themselves by saying, hey, we're just doing this for partisan purposes.
Yes.
It became a defense in the Supreme Court.
By the way, having said that, states can also pass laws banning gerrymandering for partisan purposes. Some do. But a lot don't.
Yes.
yes.
So, which exactly, that leads us to where we are now, with a wide variety of outcomes.
I just want to mention a couple of other things before you go
Please,
on. So we're talking about gerrymandering for partisan purposes.
Yes.
That's not the only type of gerrymandering that takes place. Probably the most widespread form of gerrymandering is actually gerrymandering to protect incumbency. That is 100% legal.
Yes, it certainly is.
Gerrymandering that is illegal is gerrymandering to disadvantage a racial minority. That is 100% illegal.
For the next couple of months.
Yes.
Clarence Thomas has his eyes on that one.
However, it is legal to gerrymander in order to empower minorities, so to create majority-minority districts.
Yeah.
That one is also on pretty shaky ground at the moment. Even when they weren't on shaky ground, it still would be very, very difficult to get rulings on these things, is my understanding.
Totally.
Okay.
Yeah, so we've got this widespread of outcomes where, and if we're being blunt, the fairest states are blue states, and the unfairest states are red states, like, say, North Carolina, Louisiana, Arkansas. But let's be accurate here. There are some very heavily gerrymandered blue states.
There are. Looking at you, Maryland.
Maryland is the one that everyone mentions. Nevada, Illinois, Massachusetts. There's some very heavily gerrymandered blue states.
Massachusetts, though, it's such an important part of their heritage. This is where the term gerrymander comes from. Elbridge Gerry, who I think drew an electoral map that looked like a salamander or something.
It did.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. So there's a wide variety of outcomes at the moment. So then about a month ago, Trump asks Texas to gerrymander their state further because Texas is big, not as gerrymandered as it could be, surprisingly, given their laws allow you to do anything.
Yeah.
He had heard Texas could easily leech 5 more House seats for Republicans in the midterms if they wanted to. And that would more than double the Republicans' margin in the House. For the midterms, they got 3. The Democrats need 3 seats to flip the House at the moment. That would mean they need 8. The Texas Republicans, though, were not keen on doing this.
Oh, no.
Why not? Because number one, the way you gerrymander a state is by taking some of your voters in your safe seats and then pushing them into swing seats to make them also safe Republican seats, in Texas's case. But what that does is make the old safe Republican seats less safe. And the incumbents are a little bit concerned about that. So Texas Republicans were concerned that they'd spread their votes too thin, and then they could create vulnerability if there's a blue wave of losing even more seats.
Yep.
They call that a dummy mander, where you ends up going backwards when you gerrymander. The risk of a dummy mander is even greater in Texas, probably the greatest risk in the country, because there's a real uncertainty about which way Latinos are going to vote going forward, because they moved hard to Trump in the last election.
Yep.
but they could just move hard right back.
They could.
We just don't know where they're going from here. So there's a big risk when you
Yes.
gerrymander involving Latinos.
Yes.
And 4 of the 5 districts in question are majority Hispanic districts. So they're taking a risk here. Number 3, the gerrymander seemed particularly brazen because it was happening mid-decade. Normally you redraw boundaries at the end of every decade after a new census gives you new results to gerrymander with.
Although Texas has done a mid-decade redistricting before.
Certainly has in 2003, which and right now all things we're about to talk about are very much deja vu of 2003. Okay, but despite their better judgment, Greg Abbott went along with it because he's Trump's bitch. So then Greg Abbott said, yeah, let's do it. They used as a fig leaf that they had to redraw the boundaries because the Supreme Court is about to change the rules on racial gerrymanders that you just spoke about.
Yep.
That's a whole nother topic. Anyway, that's a pretext. So let's ignore that for now. Got anything to add before I go on?
No.
Okay, so then this week they put out the new proposed map. As you can see, the new map has a lot less blue on it on the right there than on the left. Out of the state's 38 districts, only 1 was left untouched, which is the 19th. Although, here's something you get from PEP that you don't get elsewhere. I don't think Republicans will win those 5 extra seats.
Yeah.
I think 4 is most likely, and maybe 3.
There you go.
The 5 seats in question, I'll give you the evidence, are the following. 9th district's gone from a 71% Harris district in 2024 to become a 42% Harris district. That's a flip. 32nd district has gone from a 61% Harris district in 2024 to a 40% Harris district. That's a flip. The 35th district has gone from a 66% Harris district in 2024 to become a 44% Harris district. That's a flip. But then the 28th district, which is conservative Democrat Henry Cuellar's district, that was already a 53% Trump district in 2024. He's just popular in his district.
Yes.
Now it's a 55% Trump district. I think he'll survive it. He won by 6 points in 2024.
Yes.
Which means he would survive this. And they've
Yes.
just taken 2 points off him anyway. There's just not much.
Yeah.
Vicente Gonzalez in the 34th district he had a 52% Trump district in 2024. Now it's a 55% Trump district. He won by 2.6 points in 2024. They've taken 3 points off him. So
Yep.
in the midterms, in a favourable election, I think he'll hold on as well. But maybe not. So what does that mean overall? Trump won 56% of the vote in Texas in 2024. So if the results were perfectly proportional, Republicans would have won 21 out of 38 seats. They actually won 25 out of 38 seats. So it's actually not that badly gerrymandered at the moment.
No.
These changes would see them win 28 to 30 of the
Yes.
38 seats, and the Democrats would win 8 to 10 of the 38 seats. Okay, so this map has to be passed by the legislature, which is why Texas House Democrats have just fled the state.
Yes.
They don't have the numbers to defeat the bill, but they do have the numbers to deny a quorum to be able to take a vote.
Quorum
to pass
is
the bill.
2/3.
I believe so.
Yep.
This is not new in Texas.
No.
Like Dave said, they did this in 2003. So they've seen this movie and they already have the sanctions in place for this movie.
Yes.
What can they do? Fines. $500 fines per day
Yes.
if they're away. Democrat donors have already said they're going to cover that expense. Beto O'Rourke is behind covering that expense. The Texas Attorney General is threatening to maybe charge Beto O'Rourke with bribery. Sounds like a wild threat to me, but we'll see. Strip them of their positions.
No. We should explain the logic behind this.
Please go for it.
Because the logic behind this is bribery is seeking or receiving some kind of financial inducement to vote or not to vote. And so the argument is that they're getting a financial inducement or seeking a financial inducement not to vote.
Very interesting logic.
That is absolute garbage.
I don't think that's going to be a problem for them. Greg Abbott's in court right now.
Yes.
Claiming that the Democrats have abandoned their offices.
Yes.
And that he wants to strip them of their positions and then have a special election to replace them.
Yes. Now, you know what colossal legal authority he is citing for this? You know,
I believe he's citing Ken Paxton.
He is citing Ken Paxton.
The Texas Attorney
This is
General.
the best thing about this whole thing. If you're not familiar with the civil war that has been going on among Texas Republicans, like Ken Paxton is probably less popular than Kamala Harris among Texas Republicans at the moment. He's got a very, very bad, like embarrassing, disgraceful record on all kinds of things, but it's his legal opinion that they're relying on. Look, I am just about to duck out.
So, do you want to say whatever you want to say about the runaway Democrats?
I'll let you handle that. I'm going to finish with a trivia question.
Okay.
Okay, so let's make it a geography one then. How many cities are there in Los Angeles County?
Oh, my God.
So Los Angeles is one?
Yeah. So this is something I don't know a lot about. I am going to guess, it's a complete guess. I'm going to guess 3.
88. There are 88 cities in Los Angeles County, incorporated cities. Now, well, some of them are pretty small, but yeah, I think Los Angeles County has 14 million people or something like that. So,
astonishing.
Yes, 88 cities. I think I first learnt that fact from Paul Beatty's novel The Sellout from 2016, which is a fantastic novel. But anyway, that is what I'm going to leave you with.
Thank you very much, Dave, for that view.
My pleasure.
And I will see you next week. Till then,
next week.
Stay peppy.
Stay peppy.
Well, we're here about 2 minutes after Dave walked out of the room, and I'm just going to keep on ploughing on this gerrymandering section at least with Lachlan Senior here.
Senior. Hello.
Yeah,
I've grown.
Yeah, I'm naming my goldfish Lachlan. It's a tribute.
Yeah, same memory span. Good.
Let's keep on going with this story. Another thing that so I don't think they're going to be able to strip them of their positions. I don't think Ken Paxton's esteemed legal opinion is going to be good for much. The next tactic they have is to arrest them. The House Speaker has signed arrest warrants for all of these Democrats. You might be wondering how they could take a vote on arrest warrants in the House if they can't take a vote on anything else. If they don't have a quorum, how can they take a vote? Well, Texas House rules state that lawmakers who are absent from calls of the House without sufficient excuses may, by order of a majority of those present, be sent for and arrested wherever they may be found by the Sergeant-at-Arms or an officer appointed by the Sergeant-at-Arms for that purpose, and their attendance shall be secured and retained. So you don't need a quorum for that vote. Note, though, these are not warrants for criminal or civil charges. No one's been thrown in jail. No one's been sued. It's just to apprehend them and force them to return to the House. And these warrants only apply within state lines. No bounty hunters. So once they leave the state, they're untouchable, which is why they all just left the state. They went to Illinois, New York, and Massachusetts. When the House Dems fled to block voting law changes in 2021, there were no arrests then either. There's plenty of precedent on this. And the final tactic is to shame them. They've loaded up this session with as many goodies as they possibly can so they can blame the Democrats for not passing the goodies. So, for instance, we'd love to pass assistance for flood victims from the disaster earlier in the year. Sorry, we can't do it because the Democrats are in hiding. That kind of thing.
Yep. Okay.
Now, the Democrats say the choice is clear. Stand by while Abbott silences millions of black and Latino voters, or use every tool available to stop this assault on our democracy. This corrupt special session is over. The problem the Democrats have, though, is that it's way too far from the finishing line. They are not going to get there. How long can they be expected to stay away from home? They've got families, they've got kids, they've got businesses, they've got lives, unlike me. Staying away for 2 weeks, that's fine. That's when the special session ends that Abbott just called open. They can do that. But then Abbott's just going to call another special session, and another one, and another one, and another one. How long are they planning to stay away? The election is at the end of next year. How long can they do this? Abbott can at least keep calling sessions till the end of the legislative year in November. That's 4 months away. There's a reason that these standoffs tend to end after a month or so. It becomes hard. In 2021, they returned after 38 days. And that was the third longest standoff on record. The longest was back in 1924 from in Rhode Island. It was a 6-month runaway.
Wow.
I know. They did it for real back then. The next longest was in 2023. It was Oregon, and that was 43 days.
Okay, big
So,
drop down.
Yeah. So, and they need here to stay away for at least 4 months. So that's tough. Then next year, Abbott can probably call another special session anyway at the beginning of the year. You can probably still sneak the map through. So I don't think staying away that long is realistic. I think this is about drawing attention to the issue and trying to build pressure on Texas Republicans to hopefully create a compromise. I think that's what they're planning out on, the Democrats. They're not going to stop the map, though, I don't think. Good luck, guys. So anyway, so that's what's going on with the runaway Democrats. Okay. The next element is the escalation response, which I have actually gotten Dave's opinion on this just before he left, and we're going to play it later on. But let's build to it. The very day Trump expressed a desire for 5 seats from Texas, Gavin Newsom came out with a two can play at that game type attitude.
He did.
This is Newsom on Pod Save America.
Because these guys are playing by a different set of rules. And so from my perspective, if we're going to play fair in a world that is wholly unfair, we may have the higher moral ground, but the ground is shifting from underneath us. And I think we have to wake up to that reality. And I'm talking to members of my legislature, what are our alternatives?
So what does that mean? Well, he went on. He spelled out some detail.
We can do a special session. I can call for one today if I chose to. We can then put something on the ballot, and I could call a special election. We can change the Constitution with the consent of the voters, and I think we would win that. I think people understand what's at stake in California. I think we'd come out in record numbers. I think it would be extraordinary success. That's a clean way of doing it. It'd be a very short window, because you got to come back with the maps, and you got to change all this and prepare for the ballots that are around the corner next year. Or you can look at other avenues, which we are exploring, which are pathways with the legislature to do urgency clauses with 2/3 of the legislature in both of our houses, to move forward with legislative redistricting in between the constitutional construct, which is every census, the Independent Redistricting Commission does a new map, but it's silent about what happens in between. So it's a novel legal question, and it's being explored.
All right, now that's confusing. That's going to require some explanation. Unlike Texas, California has all kind of good government legislation, right, about drawing electoral boundaries. They can't just do anything they like.
Right.
Back in 2010, the state voted for a ballot question to create an independent redistricting commission. So it's not really up to Newsom what the electoral boundaries are. Furthermore, the state constitution specifically states that redistricting at the end of the decade has to be done by the independent commission. So what Newsom's saying is they've got two options. Either they call for an urgent special ballot question to get rid of their own independent commission and then do what they like, or they should say this is that all of those rules are about what happens at the end of the decade, but the law is silent on middle of the decade redistricting, which isn't supposed to happen. So Newsom says, we'll just go ahead with our redistricting ourselves in the middle of the decade, and we'll try and win the inevitable court case. In the end, they've gone for the first option. They want to have a special election and get rid of the independent commission. Before the end of the year, they have to do that under California law to get it done in time to change electoral boundaries before the primaries. Now, that seems pretty drastic from someone like Gavin Newsom, who says he believes in independent redistricting to end the independent commission that exists. But he says, quote, everything's at stake if we're not successful next year in taking back the House of Representatives. They're not screwing around. We can't afford to screw around either. We've got to fight fire with fire. He ironically said that at a fire service press conference. So he should know that you can't actually fight fire with fire. That was what his press conference was about. But anyway.
You can. It's called backburning.
I suppose, yeah, good call. Oh, you're good. Some Californian Democrats are definitely not thrilled by this proposal. Assembly member Alex Lee, who's the head of the state legislature's Progressive Caucus, says, trying to save democracy by destroying democracy is dangerous and foolish. By legitimizing the race to the bottom of gerrymandering, Democrats will ultimately lose. I think also everyone's a bit suspicious that Newsom is doing this as much as anything to raise his profile as a fighter before the 2028 primaries.
Whoa, Gavin Newsom. I hadn't heard from him since the last time we heard from him.
Yeah. Who would have thought he might be cynical about something?
Yeah.
That's the morality of a full tit-for-tat redistricting war. Do you have any view about the morality of this?
Don't do it.
Yeah.
It's not a good way. Race to the bottom.
On one side, you've got Dan Vicuna, who's a senior policy director at Common Cause, who says this will do incredible damage to faith in institutions and it would add to cynicism that so many Americans already feel about politics. There appears to be a temptation to meet attacks on democracy with more attacks on democracy, he says. John Hickenlooper also says what they're doing is wrong. Talking about Texas representatives here. It's this win at any cost devolution of our political system. But I don't think the response is to undo the good work that's been done. But on the other side, you've got Beto O'Rourke, who's the one who's funding this, who says, I buy the argument that we don't like Republicans doing it, so we certainly shouldn't do it as well. But this is for the very future and fate of the Republic. We lose it, you'll never, ever get it back. Are you convinced by Beto O'Rourke?
I am convinced by don't descend to the person you don't like's level.
Honestly, this might surprise you. If I thought it would work, I'd be on board.
Sure. Interesting.
I would be on board. And
that is surprising.
I know, because normally I'm all about the principle of this kind of stuff. But
yeah.
I think...
That's the only reason I had my opinion.
I think, honestly, you just can't unilaterally disarm in these situations. It just won't work. It hasn't worked. We've seen the evidence. The blue states, not all of them, some of them did unilaterally disarm. And what did the red states do? They just watched them and said, yeah, cool. And just, no red states doing independent commissions in response to California. They just watched them and said, thanks, and then just moved on.
Sure.
And so I feel like that was the mistake to go first. They had to they should have created a pact from the beginning where they went at the same time as some other state, paired up with a state. Like California could have paired up with Texas and gone, let's go both do it at the same time. That kind of thing.
As opposed to pairing up with Texas after Texas.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it does it the other way. Exactly. So you might be surprised to hear. If I thought it would work as a mutually assured destruction type situation.
Okay.
I'd say, yeah, okay. Yeah, give it a go. But is it going to work is the question. Ironically, even with an independent commission, California's boundaries are far more favourable to one party than Texas's are. Out of 52 seats, Democrats currently hold 43 and Republicans hold 9 with an independent commission. And that's when Californians voted 59% for Harris. So you'd expect it to be more like 32 Democrats and 20 Republicans than 43 to 9. But that's how votes are distributed in California. That's just how they are. So what that means is California could easily engineer another 4 or 5 more Democratic seats if they wanted to. In fact, Newsom seems to be very interested in a data scientist on Twitter who claimed she could create a 52-0 map in California. He gave it the big wide-eyed emojis. Hungra, hungra. If it's like a Warner Brothers cartoon.
It feels like he's copying Elon Musk.
Yes. It's a bit of that. Of course, it doesn't end there. Doesn't end with California. It never ends where you think it's going to end. If California does that, then how are the other states going to respond? Let's talk about the other red states. Ohio was already talking about potentially redistricting this year. If California retaliates, I think that's a certainty. And they're apparently worth 1 to 3 extra seats for the taking. Missouri is talking about redistricting. If this turns into an arms race, I'm sure they will. That's 1 more seat there. Then you got Florida, which has 20 reps to 8 Democrats at the moment. DeSantis says he's very seriously considering redistricting. That's 4 to 5 more Republican seats. Then there's a whole string of Republican-controlled states where you could maybe get 1 more seat if they pushed hard enough. New Hampshire, Kansas, Kentucky, Indiana, Nebraska. You're talking potentially almost 20 more Republican seats if you add in Texas. So what about the blue states? Can't they do the same thing?
Can they?
No.
Yeah.
First of all, they don't control as many states. They only have complete control of 15 states. Republicans have complete control of 23 states. Secondly, 7 of those states currently have only blue seats in them because of past gerrymanders. And on top of that, Out of the other eight states that you could even consider doing something in, heap of them have either anti-gerrymandering provisions in their constitution or some kind of independent commission because of good government legislation. So, New York, Kathy Hochul, she's talking tough. We're not going to sit by while Donald Trump and Texas Republicans try to steal this nation's future. I've been in active talks with local and national leaders, and in the coming days, we'll meet to align on our next move. Right now, they've got 19 Democrats, seven Republicans, in a state that Harris won 56% of the vote in, so they're already pretty one-sided. But, you know, they could squeeze an extra few seats out there. In fact, they tried to.
Oh.
They tried to in 2021. And you know what happened? The state courts struck them down because of their anti-gerrymandering provisions in their constitution, which they can't get rid of. New Jersey, Washington, Colorado all have independent commissions that draw their electoral lines. Only leaves 3 states, Illinois, Maryland, and Oregon. Illinois and Maryland are both super gerrymandered already, notoriously so. Illinois is 14-3. Maryland is 7-1. And Oregon, by the way, is 5-1 as well. That's all. Obviously, Democrats have the most seats there. So the best case possible scenario for Democrats in a full national redistricting arms race, if they pick up every seat they possibly can anywhere in the country, is to get 5 more seats than you can get from California. That's their maximum. To the 20-odd seats that Republicans can take.
This is why I would say that the best case, and I know nothing. I know nothing. But the best case scenario is you wait for Texas to do their thing, you lose 5 seats, Gavin Newsom zips it, and then doesn't trigger every other red state doing the same thing. So they lose 5 instead of losing 20.
That is my position.
Cool.
That is like, just for once, I'm not being idealistic. I'm being completely pragmatic. I think that is the pragmatic position. And I'll tell you why. Because I haven't even told you the key bit of information yet.
No, and I don't have your notes in front of me.
It's coming. The irony of all this is that you'd be forgiven for thinking the House is like the Wild West right now. It's just completely rigged with all these gerrymanders. But in reality, not even close. It hasn't been as fair as it is right now for decades and decades. It's super fair. I'm not saying there's no gerrymanders, but the gerrymanders balance each other out perfectly. There are a lot of different ways of measuring fairness, but have a look at this graph from the Upshot in the New York Times. That graph is showing you the advantage that Republicans have theoretically in the House. And by their count in the Upshot, the last election saw Republicans with a 7-seat House advantage, which was the smallest advantage they've enjoyed since the 1960s.
Whoa.
And even if we add on the 3 seats for Texas, which I think they're going to win, not 5, that will be a 10-seat advantage, which is still relatively small compared to the last few decades. Why is this? Well, not only did the 2010s see a lot of progress made legally against gerrymanders, but a number of gerrymanders were dismantled by states changing hands as well. Most importantly, in the 2000s and 2010s, the Democrats were almost exclusively an urban party. So they wasted a lot of their votes in heavily blue inner city districts. You have these inner city districts with 85% of the vote, 90% of the vote going to Democrats. Lots of wasted votes. But what's happened under Trump is the Democrats have gradually moved to the suburbs and exurbs, the area between country and city. Like they've got the traditional white collar type highly educated people who live out in the suburbs are now Democrats. And their voters spread out there to other seats. And Republicans, meanwhile, have won more urban votes under Trump. And so Democrats are wasting less votes. And so it's becoming a fairer spread, just demographically speaking, without any gerrymanders at all. So maybe the Democrats should just thank God for small mercies and not push their luck. If you want more evidence for this, and this will surprise you, look at the results in the 2024 House election. House GOP candidates nationwide won 51.3% of the votes in House races in 2024, and they currently control 50.5% of House seats. the Democrats were favored by the 2024 election. That hasn't happened for so long. And even if you hand the Republicans 3 more seats, it'd still be pretty much 50-50. So let Texans have those 3 seats. It doesn't matter. You have a fair election. Another way to look at this is from the upshot as well. I'll just quote them. To take the House in 2024, Democrats need to win at least one district where Mr. Trump won by 3 or more points. If the Texas map were approved, Democrats would now need to win at least one district that Mr. Trump won by 4 or more points. As in a seat that's about 2.5 points better for Mr. Trump than his 1.5 point victory in the national vote. That 2.5 point gap is a modest structural edge for the Republicans, but it pales in comparison to the 6-point structural edge the GOP enjoyed in 2016, or the 4-point edge they had going into the 2018 midterms. Remember, the 2018 midterms was a blue wave. The Democrats smashed that. Now, that was in the face of a 4-point edge to Republicans. So the Texas thing, it might be morally corrupt, but pragmatically, not a big deal.
Cool.
If the Democrats provoke a full-on redistricting war, though, by comparison, and they end up 10 seats down from 2024, or even 15 seats down from 2024, that would become a bigger deal. So if I was a Democrat, I would tread very, very carefully right about now.
Also, Gavin Newsom, who is a pepper and is watching right now, you want to win the presidential race in 2028, just get on the moral high horse now. Say, I chose not to gerrymander because I'm better. That way you don't lose all of those seats, you don't start a gerrymandering war, and you get to say a soundbite, which is all you need.
Yeah, sadly, I actually think what's best for him is to gerrymander.
Damn.
I think I don't.
You can't give him 2 pieces of advice, Chad. I don't know what to do.
I mean, look, I hope he doesn't, because I think it's bad if he does. For all kinds of reasons.
For him.
Yeah, but I actually think if he gets up there and says, I was a fighter, and he blames someone else for the reason why Democrats end up losing the 26 midterms, he comes off looking great.
Yeah, okay.
And people don't really interrogate it.
Go with Chaz.
No, don't. I know you're a pepper, Gav. Don't. just like grandstand, but I'm just honestly, he should gerrymander for his own sake. But for the Democrats' sake, for the country's sake, don't.
There's always another way to grandstand, Gav.
No one knows that better than Gav. So that's my view. That's your view. What was Dave's view when I asked him? Considering the can of worms that's about to be opened by Gavin Newsom, which is where we're going.
Yeah.
Do you think the Californians should gerrymander California or not?
No.
Can you say why or not?
Because this is now creating a norm of if your party has a majority in your state, then you get the whole state. Okay. Now, as I say, there are some states that have explicitly made laws against this, but there are obviously some pretty big ones which have not. This is before you even get to the legal obstacles in the way of it, which are pretty significant. Look, I can understand I can understand the tit for tat thing, but honestly, so the current majority that Republicans have is 5. This could add 5 seats. If Democrats can't take 10 seats at the next election, then they really are as hopeless as the polling, without having to rely on some pretty catastrophic norm breaking, then they really are as hopeless as it's suggesting. Now, of course, if all the red states start doing it, then I can potentially see the argument there. As Kathy Hochul said, we can't fight with one arm tied behind our back. She has also potentially floated the possibility. But just doing it in response to Texas, that would just be accelerating the arms race.
Thank you, Dave from the grave. Spooky. Look, actually, the biggest issue, I think, with all this is actually not the gerrymander. Like I said, that's not new. The biggest issue is the redistricting in the middle of the cycle. I know they did in 2003, but if they do it now and California does it and all these other states do it, then it's an open slather. People will be constantly messing with electoral lines from now on every single election, and there'll be no boundaries at all. Which I actually think is the biggest problem. It's the biggest problem with Trump as well, just asking for 5 seats. No one's got any boundaries anymore. Where's the restraint gone, Lockie? I don't know. Anyway, the solution, by the way, if you're wondering what the solution for all this is, it's there's a few obvious ones. Congress can legislate independent commissions if they want. So if the Democrats win full control in the future, do it. They could have done it in 2008. Congress could repeal the Uniform Congressional District Act from 1967, which legislates single-member districts. What I mean by that is they could have like a Senate system from Australia, where you got more than one people, say California has 52 representatives, and everyone in California can vote for everyone, and the top 52 go through. Like there's a lot of different ways you can do it.
Fascinating.
There's a lot of different ways you can do it, but that would eliminate gerrymandering. So you could do proportional representation essentially.
If they're not doing preferential voting, they are not going below the line.
Yeah. Well, that is the concern. You have to do it in the simplest possible way for Americans. And, how they elect them is up for debate. But in principle, I think proportional representation would solve these problems. But you're right; they're probably not going to be doing that. So anyway, that's my gerrymander bit. You got anything to add to that?
No, all good. I
Okay,
think
all right.
I had more thoughts than a goldfish.
Okay, well, you go away, Lockie, and you edit this. Let's see if we can coincidentally land on 30000. And if we can't, then I'll be back for the world's shortest Chaz Unleash after this. But if not, I will see you next week, and I'll see you next week, Lockie. And until then, stay peppy.